Chapter 199 Veiled Figure. His movements. His aura. This person is definitely a top Zither expert. And judging by his clothes, he's an outer court disciple from the Dragon Essence Temple. The veiled figure was greatly shocked by Yuan's uniform, silently wondering why he didn't join the Heavenly Melody Academy instead. With his abilities, he could easily become a core disciple at the Heavenly Melody Academy, even a high-ranking sect elder. Yet he decided to join the Dragon Essence Temple that doesn't have any Zither experts? What reason could have possibly led him to such a foolish decision? He's wasting his talents in that place. This veiled individual did not believe the Dragon Essence Temple deserved an excellent Zither expert like Yuan, even feeling a bit envious of them. The veiled individual suddenly had the urge to go up to Yuan and tell him to leave the Dragon Essence Temple and join the Heavenly Melody Academy instead. However, when they noticed Elder Shan and Elder Shan's presence sitting not far away, they quickly tossed out that idea. Grand Elder Shan and Great Elder Shan, what are they doing in this place? Are they following that disciple? Perhaps even protecting him? That's ridiculous. The veiled figure has never heard of an outer court disciple needing protection from two high-ranking sect elders before until today. Sometime later, Yuan finished his second song, and the audience immediately exploded with cheers and clapping. Play another song. Encore. Yuan was slightly startled when he looked up and saw the massive crowd clapping for him. Visit lightnov/lpub/c/om for the best novel reading experience. Okay, I will play another song, Yuan said to them, increasing the hype. However, right as he prepared to play the third song, a tall figure wearing a veil on their head and pretty fitted red robes jumped from the back of the crowd and landed a few meters away in front of him. Who's that? The crowd stared at this newcomer with raised eyebrows. Damn. Look at that figure. She's definitely a peerless beauty behind that veil. How can you tell that she's a beauty without looking at her face? There's a very high chance she's only perfect below the neck. Why else would she be wearing a veil? Shut up. I know a beauty when I see one even without looking at their faces. Meanwhile, Elder Shan and Elder Shan narrowed their eyes at this unknown threat with great caution, preparing to defend Yuan at any moment. Although they cannot tell exactly this unknown presence's full cultivation, they were sure that she was at least a spirit grandmaster. And while they do not have the ability to fight against a spirit grandmaster, they can at least reassure Yuan's safety. This content is taken from li/g/tnov/lpub. Can I help you? Yuan asked the veiled woman who had a flawless body figure after staring at her for a moment. However, the unknown lady did not respond to Yuan's question, and instead took a seat at the stone table directly beside Yuan. She then retrieved a red zither from her spatial ring and placed it on the table. This veiled lady then turned to look at Yuan and proceed to stare at him in silence, almost like she was trying to tell him something. And even though there was a piece of cloth blocking her face, Yuan could somehow see the expression she was making and recognized that she was challenging him. Yuan nodded and said, "Whenever you're ready." The veiled lady then lifted her hands and showed him 3 of her slender fingers. A second later, she curled one of those fingers, making it 2. Yuan immediately realized that she was doing a countdown and nodded his head. Updated from Light Novel Pub. On the third count, both Yuan and the veiled lady played their zither at the same time. Ting ting, 2 beautiful yet very unique and distinct music notes appeared at the same time, almost like they were trying to outdo each other. The audience expected a chaotic scene. However, to their surprise, they quickly realized that they were able to listen to both songs simultaneously without feeling like the music was interfering with one another. How is this possible? The audience was dumbfounded, feeling like they were existing in 2 worlds at once. It was an odd phenomenon that they've never experienced before. This is. Fei Yuyan's jaw dropped to the ground when she realized what was happening, especially after witnessing the skill being displayed by the veiled lady. Although I've never personally heard her play the zither before, there's only one person I can think of that can play so perfectly. Senior Song, Sect Master of the Heavenly Melody Academy. I cannot believe it. She challenged disciple Yuan with the zither the day before the competition. Fei Yuyan cried inwardly, her heart beating with excitement. For more, visit l//itno/velp/ub. Com Master, I think that's in your song. Fei Yuan whispered to Elder Shan, who immediately turned to look at her with wide eyes. Are you sure? What's she doing here? Challenging disciple Yuan no less. Elder Xian said. Who else but Senior Song can produce such heavenly music notes? Besides disciple Yuan, of course. Fei Yuan said. What do you think is going to happen to the competition now? Xian Wuhan couldn't help but ask. Who knows? Fei Yuan shrugged. Anything can happen at this point once she realizes that disciple Yuan is a participation in the competition. Ting. An awkward and off-sounding noise suddenly resounded in the area, causing the people to turn to look at the veiled lady who'd suddenly stopped playing the zither. The veiled lady looked at her own hands that were slightly trembling, seemingly in disbelief that she'd lost the challenge, and then she turned to look at Yuan, who was still playing the zither without a care in the world for his surroundings. It took him a single song, no, half a song to snap me out of my concentration. Just who is this zither expert, and where on earth did he come from? The veiled lady thought to herself, her interest in Yuan piqued, feeling an indescribable feeling in her heart. Follow current novels on l/itnovelpu/b. Com. Chapter 200 Being Poached in Public. Yuan finished his song 2 minutes after the veiled lady stopped playing her zither, and he turned to look at her with his clear eyes afterward. That was very fun. Thank you for playing with me, Yuan said with a smile behind his mask. The veiled lady stared at Yuan's bright eyes in silence, seemingly pondering about something, and after a long moment of silence, she finally spoke for the first time in a very soothing voice. How would you like to join the Heavenly Melody Academy? Whatever position you want, you can have. Not only Yuan but everybody there was dumbfounded by the veiled lattice sudden words that turned out to be a recruitment for the Heavenly Melody Academy. But I am already a disciple at the Dragon Essence Temple. Yuan responded in a dazed voice. The veiled lady nodded her head, and she continued in a shameless voice. I know. You can simply leave them and come to us. After all, you're definitely more suited for the Heavenly Melody Academy where everybody is a musician. However, before Yuan could even respond, the veiled lady lifted her right hand and grabbed the red veil that was covering her face before pulling it off her head, revealing the peerless face behind it. When the people there saw this extremely beautiful woman that resembled a goddess, their eyes and mouths widened with shock. This content is taken from Light/Novelpub. Com to that's Senior Song. What? She was the sect master of the Heavenly Melody Academy this entire time. Does this mean that unknown zither expert had managed to defeat Senior Song, who is widely recognized as the goddess of music, in a one-on-one zither battle? This is unprecedented. She really was Senior Song. Fei Yuan mumbled in a dazed voice. After revealing her identity to the people there, Songlinger stood up and turned to look at Elder Xian and Elder Shan with a serious expression on her face. I have never done this before, poaching a disciple from another sect, and even in front of their sect elders and fellow disciple. What I am doing right now will definitely tarnish my reputation. And I respect the Dragon Essence Temple's reputation, but I simply cannot allow someone so talented with the instrument to waste his time in a place where they don't even teach music. In fact, I am a little frustrated that Head decided to join your sect and not mine. I hope you can understand my feelings, elders from the Dragon Essence Temple. Songlinger said to them. Elder Xian and Elder Shan were shocked speechless after listening to Songlinger's words. Not even in a million years could they have imagined that there would be a day where the sect master of the Heavenly Melody Academy would personally poach one of their disciples and directly in front of them at that. However, no matter how Songlinger felt, even if she threatened them with blades on their neck, there was no way they would give up someone like Yuan. After all, his cultivation talents are equal to his music talents, if not even above that. Visit li/gh/tnovelpub/c/om for a better experience. I understand your feelings very well, Senior Song, but this is not something we have a say in. If you really want to continue with this conversation, then you must speak with our sect master, Elder Xian said to her, directing all responsibility to Long Yijuan. Mostly because he didn't want to deal with someone like Songlinger, who was known for being stubborn and aggressive. Songlinger frowned. However, if she could poach someone like Yuan, even if she has to travel to the end of the world, it would be worth it 110%. It's fine, Senior Song. You don't have to speak with the sect master. Yuan suddenly said, and he continued, while I am grateful and humbled at the same time that you'd invite me to your sect, I don't plan on leaving the Dragon Essence Temple. Why? What's at the Dragon Essence Temple that's keeping you there? Songlinger suddenly snapped, startling everybody there. I have never seen someone as talented as you before. You don't belong in a place like the Dragon Essence Temple. You belong to the Heavenly Melody Academy, where you'll be able to really shine. If you join our sect, I can guarantee you that you'll become a world-famous musician whose name will be as prestigious if not even more prestigious than the Zither goddess. Hearing Songlinger's words, Yuan couldn't help but show a bittersweet smile. There are some matters in the Dragon Essence Temple that I must attend to. Therefore, I cannot just leave. Furthermore, I don't intend on becoming a world-famous musician, since music is only a hobby of mine, and I want to focus on cultivation more. What? Music is only a hobby? That's such a waste of your heaven-sent talents. Songlinger stared at Yuan with disbelief in her eyes. How could someone with such tremendous talents not focus on improving that specific talent? She has never seen such foolishness before. Of course, Songlinger was unaware of Yuan's godlike cultivation talents, or else she wouldn't be reacting in such a manner. This content is taken from live//TNovelPub. I'm really sorry, but I have decided to never play the instrument seriously ever again since I have already experienced enough of that in my life, Yuan said to her. Songlinger narrowed her eyes at Yuan, but she didn't say anything else. A moment later, she took a deep breath and released it. She then turned around and started walking away from the area. This won't be your last time seeing me, nor will I give up on trying to poach you either. I'll be sure to give a visit to the Dragon Essence Temple after this Zither competition, Songlinger said as she disappeared from the area. Once Songlinger left the scene, Elder Shan approached Yuan and said to him, "Let's also leave before it gets any more chaotic." Yuan nodded and left the park with the others shortly later. Chapter 2:01 Warning her disciples. After leaving the park, Songlinger returned to the hotel she was staying at, but then she suddenly realized something that made her run back to the park. I forgot to ask that person for his name. What a blunder! Songlinger cried inwardly when she realized that she'd forgotten to ask for Yuan's name, due to her frustration at that moment. But alas, by the time she returned to the park, Yuan and the others were already long gone. Forget it. I'll ask Long Yuan when I visit the Dragon Essence Temple. Even if they try to hide him from me, I have already memorized his figure and hands so I'll recognize him at glance. Thinking this, Songlinger once again returned to the hotel, but her mind couldn't get rid of Yuan's flawless Zither arts, and she proceeded to spend the rest of the day thinking about Yuan's performance, even analyzing it. Wait a second. That person was playing the soul-ensnaring Zither. Da was Zou's treasure. Maybe he knows this unknown expert's identity. After spending an hour in her hotel, Songlinger went outside for the third time today, and she went straight to the Zhou family's household, surprising Senior Zhou with her unannounced visit. Senior Song. Welcome to my humble place. How may I help you today? Senior Zhou bowed to her in a respectful manner. The soul-ensnaring Zither. When did you give it away? Songlinger asked him. How do you know that I'd given away the soul-ensnaring Zither? I haven't announced anything yet. Senior Zhou looked at her with a surprised face. Updated from live/TNovelPub. Because I saw someone playing with it not long ago, she calmly responded. I see. So he's already playing it. A warm smile appeared on Senior Zhou's face, causing Songlinger to raise her eyebrows. Then she asked him, "Just who is that person? I have also tried playing the soul-ensnaring Zither multiple times, but I never figured out how to play it properly, yet this person did it flawlessly." Senior Zhou shook his head and said, "Believe me when I say this, but I also don't know his background. Besides his face and that he's from the Dragon Essence Temple, I don't know anything else about him." Wait, you saw his face? What did he look like? Songlinger suddenly asked, her eyes brimming with curiosity. Well, he was a very handsome young man. A handsome young man? And you don't recognize him at all? How can such a talented individual be a nobody? Songlinger asked. Senior Zhou shrugged and said, I have no idea. Songlinger no longer said anything and stood there with a pondering look on her beautiful face. The most up-to-date novels are published on Light Novel Pub. Calm and almost as though had suddenly recalled something, Senior Zhou spoke a moment later. Oh right. He's also called Yuan, and he will be participating in the Zither competition with Fei Yuyan as his partner. He's what? Songlinger turned to look at him with a shocked look on her face. If someone like Yuan participated in the competition, it would no longer become a competition, but a one-sided performance instead. Is there something wrong with that? Senior Zhou asked her. No. If someone like him participates in the competition, there's no doubt that he will become an instant sensation. In fact, if I could, I would give him the first place and end the competition right now. You think of him that highly? I have never seen you praising someone to such an extent. Your disciples will cry if they hear that, Senior Zhou chuckled. They can cry all they want, but if they want to complain, they better prove to me that they're worth praising. Songlinger spoke in a nonchalant voice. Anyway, I'm going to leave now. Thank you for your time. New novel chapters are published on Light Novel Pub. Senior Zhou nodded and said, My Zhou family will always have its doors open for you, Senior Song. Songlinger left the Zhou family shortly later. Yuan huh? Songlinger mumbled his name as she traveled in the streets with a veil covering her face, yet her womanly figure still attracted countless gazes. Sometime later, Songlinger arrived at a hotel that was different from the one she was staying at. Welcome back, Senior Song. The workers there immediately greeted her when they saw her figure. Are my disciples here? She asked the workers behind the reception desk. Yes, they are currently inside their room, Senior Song. Songlinger nodded and proceeded to look for her disciples. Visit Light Novel Pub. For the best novel reading experience, Master. Two individuals in their early 20s, a young lady and young man, showed up shortly after Songlinger knocked on their doors and greeted her. Ai Wan, Wei Kong, I have something important to say, Songlinger said to them, and she continued with a serious look on her face, even removing her veil so they could see how serious she was being. This Zither competition. You will meet someone exceptional. Someone who will make you doubt your own talents and existence. Her disciples looked at her with a gawking expression, as they could not comprehend why she was telling them such a thing right before the competition. I am telling you this because I want you to prepare yourselves, since you two have been acting very relaxed, almost like you've already won the competition. Don't get complacent because you are my disciples. We were wrong to look down on others just because we're your disciples, Master. The disciples lowered their heads, apologizing for being complacent. Songlinger nodded her head and left shortly later, returning to her own hotel. What happened to the Master? She's acting a little suspicious. The two disciples looked at each other with a dumbfounded look after she left. Updated from l/itnovelpub/. Master usually carries this confident and slightly arrogant aura around her, but I couldn't feel that from her just now. Wei Kong, the male disciple mumbled. Perhaps something really happened. I have never seen her act like this before. Ai1 sighed, and she continued. She said there'll be someone exceptional in the competition, right? Did she just praise someone? I don't think I have ever seen her praise anyone before. Not even her own disciples. I'm actually feeling a little excited about this competition now, Wei Kong said with a slight smile on his face. Mew. Chapter 202 Introducing the Judges. After returning to the Royal Blossom Hotel, Elder Shan sighed while looking at Yuan. I knew you'd attract Sect Master Song's attention at the competition with your talents, but I didn't think would encounter her before the competition. And she'd even gone as far as trying to poach you. This is going to be problematic. Why would it be problematic? I have already refused her invitation to join the Heavenly Melody Academy, Yuan said. Just because you'd refused her invitation doesn't mean she'll give up on you, disciple Yuan. And knowing Senior Song's character, she'll most likely continue trying to poach you until she gets tired of it, which might take a couple of years if not decades. Hopefully the sect master can convince Senior Song to give up. Elder Xian sighed loudly. Anyway, you should stay inside the hotel for the rest of the day. It's best to stay low-key after what happened at the park today, since I'm sure that it is already being spread around as we speak. As Elder Xian had guessed, the people that witnessed Yuan's performance were already spreading what they witnessed, and how an unknown Zither expert from the Dragon Essence Temple had defeated the Heavenly Melody Academy's sect master, Songlinger. Of course, nobody believed this rumor at first, since they would have known about such an expert already if he really existed. But as more and more people began spreading the news, with even some reputable musicians saying the same thing, some people could not help but start believing the rumors to a certain extent. Since there's nothing to do until the competition tomorrow, I'll log off for today, Yuan said to the elders before logging off in their room, and spending the remainder of the day cultivating in the real world, even advancing a level by the end of the day, reaching 7th level Spirit Apprentice. The following day, after returning to the game and some preparations, Yuan and the others left the hotel and went to the gathering area again. Good luck, both of you. We'll be watching your performance in the spectators area, Elder Shan said to Yuan and Fei Yuyan once they reached outside the gathering area. Visit lighten/ov//lpub/com for a better experience. Good luck, Yuan. I'll be cheering for you, Xian Wuhan said to him with a bright smile on her face. Good luck, disciple Yuan, Minli said to him, feeling a little awkward, as this is her first time being in such a situation. Good luck and above all have fun, Elder Xian said with a smile. Thank you all, Yuan said to them before following Fei Yuyan inside the gathering area. There appear to be fewer people here today than before. What happened? Yuan asked after noticing that the gathering area was much more empty compared to yesterday. Only participants are allowed here now, that's why, Fei Yuyan said. Anyway, there's still another hour or so until they close the gates and begin the competition. Let's find a place to wait until then. Yuan nodded and followed Fei Yuyan around until they found an empty spot underneath a tree, where they proceeded to wait. Look over there, isn't that Fairy Fei from the Dragon Essence Temple? She's participating in this year's competition as well. Who's her partner though? And why is that person wearing a mask? The most up-to-date novels are published on li/tnav//l/pub. The other participants there quickly noticed Fei Yuyan's presence, and some of them even decided to approach her with friendly greetings. Hello Fairy Fei. I am Wan Hu from the Wan family. I just want to let you know that I started playing the Zither after witnessing your performance in the previous competition, and now I am participating in the competition myself. Fairy Fei, do you remember me? I am Du Ruhui, and I was ranked 8th place in the last competition. Fei Yuyan glanced at these people, and then she said, Please do not bother me right now. I am trying to concentrate on the competition. If you have the time to chit-chat, use that time to prepare yourself for the competition instead. These people were dumbfounded by Fei Yuyan's cold response, but it was not unexpected, since Fei Yuyan was known for being distant towards others, especially men. Meanwhile, Yuan surveyed the area, even paying attention to the people that were just entering the place, almost like he was searching for a certain individual. Of course, he was simply trying to see how many participants there were players. Time passed quickly, and the gates to the gathering were shut exactly an hour later. Welcome to the 100th Zither competition. This content is taken from light/novelp/ub/com. A familiar face suddenly appeared before the participants and said out loud, silencing the place immediately. That's Senior Zhou. Yuan mumbled after seeing him. My surname is Zhou, and I am one of the judges that will be participating in this year's competition, Senior Zhou said, and he continued, Allow me to introduce the other 2 judges that will be working with me today. A few seconds later, 2 figures descended from the sky and landed beside Senior Zhou. One of them was a woman wearing a crimson-red dress and a veil over her head, whilst the other judge was a tall, handsome man that emitted a powerful aura. On my right side, we have Senior Song, Sect Master of the Heavenly Melody Academy. Senior Zhou introduced Songlinger. He then pointed to the tall man and said, "On the other side, we have Elder Jing from the Heaven and Earth Palace, our sponsor for this year's competition." After introducing the judges, Senior Zhou continued, "Normally, we would grade each of you separately until the final event, but as most of you have guessed, we will be doing things slightly different for this year's competition." While Senior Zhou talked about competition, Song Linger searched the crowd with her sharp eyes from behind the veil, seemingly trying to look for a certain individual. For more, visit lighten/ovalpub // Com found him. He's really participating in this competition. Yuan. Song Linger's eyes widened when she saw Yuan with his black jade mask standing beside Fei Yuyan, and she could immediately feel her heart beating slightly faster than just a moment ago for some reason. Chapter 203 Always Looking for Talented Individuals. After Senior Zhou mumbled about the competition and some of its history, he turned to look at Song Linger and spoke, "Senior Song, are we ready to start the competition?" However, almost as though she didn't hear him, Song Linger did not respond to his question, making Senior Zhou repeat his words for a second time. "Senior Song, are we ready to start the competition?" What did you just say?" Song Linger suddenly snapped out of her dazed and turned to look at Senior Zhou's dumbfounded face. "I said, we are ready to start the competition whenever you are ready, Senior Song." Song Linger then nodded. "Yes, we can start." Senior Zhou nodded his head, and then he turned to look at the thousands of participants there and said, "Follow me to the arena where you'll perform in front of millions of people." The participants there swallowed nervously when they heard that there were going to be millions of people. While they'd expected and prepared themselves for a large crowd, they didn't expect such a massive audience. This must be the influence of the Heaven and Earth Palace, and the sect master of the Heavenly Melody Academy, Song Linger. New novel chapters are published on lighten/ovalpub // Com. Senior Zhou suddenly turned around and walked into the building, and the participants followed him. A few minutes later, Senior Zhou led them through the entire building and into a vast, empty area that spanned for almost an entire mile, with spectators blocking the scenery in every direction due to the sheer amount of people that were present. However, upon closer inspection, the area wasn't actually empty, and there were thousands of small wooden tables placed around the area in an orderly fashion with a zither resting on top. Furthermore, each of these zither looked exactly the same, and none of them looked any different from another. In fact, they were all ordinary zither. When the spectators saw these participants coming out of the building, the noises in that area exploded with excitement, causing the air to shake. "You have 5 minutes to find a seat, and you must be sitting directly next to your partner. Go," Senior Zhou said to them, and the participants scattered like ants to find their seats. Although it was a bit messy at first, all of the participants were seated before 5 minutes had passed. Once everyone was seated, the 3 judges jumped on top of 3 tall platforms that were placed directly in front of the participants before taking a seat. Sitting directly in the middle of the participants was Song Linger with Senior Zhou on her right side, and Elder Jing on her left side. Visit lighten/ovalpub /om for a better experience. Thank you all for coming here today. Senior Zhou spoke in a calm voice, yet his voice boomed loudly and rippled throughout the area, sounding as though he was using an invisible microphone. "Before we start, allow us to introduce ourselves." Senior Zhou suddenly stood up and introduced himself. "My name is Zhou Fujian, and I was only 7 years old when I first touched the zither. It has been exactly 135 years since I've started practicing the zither. Yet I still cannot help but become excited when I see a zither in front of me. This is also my 9th time acting as a judge here. That's all." After his brief introduction, Senior Zhou returned to his seat whilst the sect elder from the Heaven and Earth Palace stood up and began introducing himself with a proud aura around him. "Surname Jing, and I am a sect elder from the Heaven and Earth Palace for the Inner Court disciples. I will admit that my experience with the zither is not as vast or profound as the other 2 judges, but I have supervised over 100 disciple examinations for the Heaven and Earth Palace, bringing hundreds of talented disciples to the sect, so I know a thing or two about judging people. That's all." After Elder Jing sat down, everybody in the area turned to look at the beautiful figure sitting in the middle. their gaze filled with admiration and anticipation. A moment later, Songlinger stood up and removed her veil, revealing to the audience her peerless beauty. Heavens! What a divine beauty! As expected of the divine Zither fairy, her beauty knows no boundaries. Ah! I didn't come here to watch the Zither competition, only to witness for myself whether Senior Fairy Song was as beautiful as people say she is. I can now say for certain that she's the most beautiful woman I have ever seen. This trip was definitely worth it. For more, visit Light Novel Pub. Come, Aya. Senior Fairy Song. I love you. The men and women there showered Songlinger with praises regarding her beauty, almost like everyone there were her admirers. However, Songlinger did not pay attention to the noises, and her eyes remained fixed in a certain direction. Noticing this, Senior Zhou followed her gaze and turned to look in the direction she was looking at. Why am I not surprised? A slight smile appeared on his face when Senior Zhou saw a distinct figure wearing a jade black mask who was also sitting beside a very pretty young lady. She's really obsessed with him, huh? Well, I cannot blame her. After all, she always talked about how she will be the first one to play the soul-ensnaring Zither after the Zither goddess. I can imagine the shock that Shed received when someone much younger than her stole that achievement from her. A few moments later, once the noises in the area died down, Songlinger spoke in a calm voice. Sect Master of the Heavenly Melody Academy, Songlinger. We are always looking for talented individuals in the Tao of music, especially those who specialize in the Zither. Therefore, if you can attain at least the top 10, I will consider accepting you as a disciple in the Heavenly Melody Academy. As for whoever achieves first place, I shall make you my own disciple. The crowd gasped in shock when they heard such words from Songlinger. She was going to accept a disciple today? This was something nobody there could have expected. Not even her own disciples. Meanwhile, Yuan looked at Songlinger's beautiful figure from behind the mask, pondering to himself, why does it feel like she's talking specifically to me? Visit lee/geitno/vel/pub. Com for a better experience. Chapter 204. How is this even fair? After her explosive announcement, Songlinger returned to her seat in a casual manner, almost like it was just another day for her. Meanwhile, the crowd exploded into another commotion. Senior Fairy Song will be accepting another disciple. But if I remember correctly, Shed mentioned that she won't be accepting any more disciples after accepting her current 2 disciples 6 years ago. However, not everybody was excited about Songlinger's announcement. She's really sneaky. I didn't think she would strike back so quickly. Elder Shan felt her eyebrows twitch upon hearing Songlinger's announcement. Since she already knows that Disciple Yuan has what it takes to achieve first place if not guaranteed to take first place, she purposefully announced that she'll accept the first place as her disciple to use the crowd to pressure Disciple Yuan into accepting. What a brilliant yet shameless move. Elder Tian shook his head, unsure whether to laugh or cry at Songlinger's desperate attempt to force Yuan into joining the Heavenly Melody Academy. What if Disciple Yuan doesn't actually achieve first place? What then? Will she simply change her mind? Xian Wuhan couldn't help but that. No, that's not possible. Although there are 2 other judges there, Senior Song's judgment will easily outweigh their judgment. If she says first place belongs to Disciple Yuan, he will undoubtedly get first place. Who will dare to refute her judgment? Who has the credentials to challenge her judgment? Nobody. Elder Xian explained to her. Furthermore, with Disciple Yuan's abilities, nobody would find Senior Song's judgment unfair. This is really unfair. A scandal. How can someone as prestigious as Senior Song lower herself to such a degree just to recruit Disciple Yuan? I cannot understand this. Xian Wuhan sighed. Elder Xian and Elder Shan looked at Xian Wuhan with weird looks. If Xian Wuhan knew just how talented Yuan was, she would understand Songlinger's desperation. In fact, if the roles were reversed, their sect master Long Yijuan would undoubtedly be doing the same thing as Songlinger, doing whatever he could to poach Yuan. Visit lightno/velpub. Com for a better experience sometime later. Senior Zhou cleared his throat, and he spoke in a clear voice. Now let's talk about the competition itself. There will be 3 different parts in the competition, and you will be scored from 1 to 10 by each judge. At the end of the competition, whichever team has the most points will be declared first place. For the first part, we will have each of you play 3 music notes, no more no less. You can play any note you want, but you only have 3, so choose wisely. Senior Zhou then pointed to the participants sitting in the first row and said, "We will start from you. You have 30 seconds to prepare, starting now." The place immediately became silent, and millions of eyes gazed upon this participant who was going first, casting an invisible pressure on this participant, who felt like a mountain had suddenly appeared on his shoulders. The participant's hands trembled as he reached for the zither on the table, and a moment later, ting, ting, tin, 3 very awkward-sounding music notes echoed in the area, immediately putting frowns on the audience's faces. However, none of the audience made any noise or complained, and they silently waited for the judge's verdict. Updated from /lightnovelp/u/b. Senior Zhou and Elder Jing turned to look at Song Linger, almost like they were waiting for her to give her verdict first, but after seeing that she hadn't moved even after a good moment, they decided to give their verdicts first. 0. Senior Zhou spoke in a cold voice. 0. Elder Jing followed. Once the other judges gave their verdict, Song Linger finally spoke, and her cold voice resounded clearly in the place. "There's no need for your partner to continue. The 2 of you may leave the premise, as you are no longer qualified to participate in this competition." The participant nodded with a flushed face and teary eyes, yet he didn't complain. As for his partner, who was staring at him with an enraged expression, he also remained silent. After bowing to the Song Linger and the others, the 2 of them left the area with a shameful back. Next, Senior Zhou immediately looked at the next participant. Visit Light Novel Pub. Come for a better experience. A few seconds later, 3 beautiful notes resounded in the area. 5. Senior Zhou declared. 6. Elder Jing followed. 2. Song Linger said in a nonchalant voice. The audience was slightly baffled by Song Linger's score that was vastly lower compared to the other 2 judges. However, they weren't too surprised, since someone like Song Linger must have an extremely high standard due to her experience and background. A few minutes later, over a dozen teams were graded, but Song Linger has yet to give anyone above 3 points. Half an hour and hundreds of teams later, they finally reached a team that was relatively famous, as they'd ranked in the top 20s individually in the previous competition. 3 music notes later, the 2 judges looked at Song Linger. For more, visit l/i/gh/tno/velpub. However, she remained silent. A few more seconds later, Senior Zhou spoke. 8 points. 8 points from me as well. Great job. Everyone there turned to look at Song Linger, and patiently waited for her judgment. 2 seconds later, she opened her mouth and mumbled, 6 points. Oh. Someone finally managed to score above 3 points, even doubling it. Who is that? I don't think I know his name. That's Ning Xiang. He placed 11th last competition. It seems like he has practiced his butt off since then, and his efforts are showing. 10 minutes later, another team managed to receive more than 5 points from Song Linger. At this point, the audience and participants alike only cared about Song Linger's verdict, and barely paid attention to Senior Zhou and Elder Jing. For more, visit Light Novel Pub. After some time, it was finally Song Linger's own disciple turn. Look, that's AI1 and Wei Kong, Senior Fairy Song's disciple. I didn't know they were going to participate in the competition. The spectators immediately recognized them. What? How is this even fair? They'll definitely get first place. This is probably why Senior Fairy Song announced that she was accepting new disciples, because she knew how difficult it would be to achieve first place with her disciples participating. The audience was stumped by their unexpected appearance. Chapter 2050 points. Wei Kong and AI1? Is this even legal? How can they allow Senior Song's own disciples to join this competition? They'll obviously dominate the entire competition. Xian Wuhan complained in a sighing voice, and she continued, I just hope that they're not better than Yuan. I have never heard them play before, but I don't think disciple Yuan would fall behind them. Elder Shan said, continuing with a smile on her beautiful face. After all, he defeated their master, Senior Song, in a one-on-one battle. While the audience talked about Wei Kong and AI Yuan, Songlinger spoke first for the first time. You may begin. The place instantly turned silent, and everybody there stared at Wei Kong, who was the first to go with intensive gazes. After taking a deep breath, Wei Kong moved his arms in an elegant and precise manner, playing 3 music notes in quick succession, his aura radiating with confidence and elegance. Ting, 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 3 beautiful music notes that pulled the listeners' heartstrings resounded in the area. Ah, what beautiful music notes! As expected of Senior Fairy Song's disciple, he's on an entirely different level compared to the other participants. Indeed, nobody else has managed to cause my heart to tremble in such a manner. The source of this content is Lightno/Velpub. C/Om. A few moments later, Senior Zhou and Elder Jing turned to look at Songlinger, giving her the opportunity to go first since they were her disciples. However, Songlinger remained silent, her intentions clear. Senior Zhou and Elder Jing exchanged looks with each other before nodding. The next moment, Senior Zhou spoke with a smile on his face. That was excellent, Junior Wei. I expected nothing less from one of Senior Song's disciples. Although it was only 3 mere music notes, I was able to fully grasp your profound understanding of the Zither with that brief performance just now. I'll give you 10 points. The crowd cheered with excitement after hearing Senior Zhou give out his first perfect score, which was to be expected. I agree with Senior Zhou. It was only 3 music notes, but I already want to hear more. Great job. Elder Jing praised Wei Kong. Thank you, seniors. Wei Kong stood up and bowed to them before turning to look at Songlinger, who has yet to give her judgment. After a moment of awkward silence, Songlinger finally spoke in a nonchalant voice. Do you remember what I told you about being complacent? I do, Master. Wei Kong nodded, sensing an ominous feeling coming from Songlinger's tone. Visit Lighten/Ovalpub. Calm for a better experience. Then what was that rubbish just now? I've heard better sounds coming from a pig. What an utter disappointment from you, Wei Kong. 0 points. Songlinger said in a cold voice. 0 points? Everybody there, including Wei Kong himself, was baffled by Songlinger's harsh assessment. How could such a wonderful performance be worth less than the others who were clearly worse, much less 0 points? Maybe she's being especially harsh on him because of their master and disciple relationship. You see this very often, when the master purposefully degrades their own disciples, so they can grow stronger and faster. While everybody there felt that Wei Kong had deserved much better than 0 points, who dared to challenge Songlinger's decision, regarding her own disciple, no less. After giving Wei Kong her verdict, Songlinger turned to look at the pretty young lady sitting beside him, her second disciple, AI Yuan, whose back was filled with cold sweat at this moment. Go ahead. Songlinger said to her a moment later. Yes, Master. AI Yuan nodded, and she proceeded to take the full 30 seconds of preparation time to calm her mind and focus on the Zither before her. Follow current novels on li/tnov/lpub/. After taking a deep breath, AI Yuan played 3 music notes in a similar fashion to Wei Kong, yet it produced an entirely different sound, even giving off its unique atmosphere. The audience could feel their bodies relaxing after hearing these music notes. Such a powerful yet peaceful note. How does she create such a wonderful sound? I nearly dozed off after listening to her music notes. Sometime later, Senior Zhou spoke with a smile on his face. Wonderful. It's only been half a year since I've last heard you play, and you've improved by leaps and bounds since then. A definite 10 points from me. I am speechless, really. Elder Jing spoke next, and he said, It's also a definite 10 points from me. Once the 2 judges finished their assessments, everybody turned to look at Songlinger, and AI Yuan swallowed nervously. After a moment of silence, Songlinger said in a calm voice, I'm glad to see that at least one of my disciples had listened to my words. 9 points. A bright smile appeared on AI Yuan's face after hearing Songlinger's verdict, and she immediately bowed. Thank you, Master. This content is taken from Lightnov/Lpub. Poached. Wei Kong sneered inwardly when AI-1 didn't get scolded like he had been shamed in front of millions of people by their master. Feeling incredibly salty. After Songlinger's disciples' turn, the next 100 teams failed to produce anything worthy of praise, as the standard had been raised incredibly high by AI-1 and Wei Kong despite his score. In fact, it was so boring that some of the crowds even began to doze off. Half an hour later, 3 unexpectedly beautiful music notes resounded in the area, sweeping the audience's drowsiness away in an instant. Who played those 3 notes just now? Someone in the audience asked. It was that beautiful young fairy. I think that's Fairy Faye from the Dragon Essence Temple. Oh, I know of her. She placed 7th in the last competition. Wow. She is not only a beauty but also an excellent Zither expert. I think Senior Fairy Song's disciples finally have a real opponent in this Zither competition. Are you sure she only placed 7th? That doesn't seem right. Her 3 music notes were not any less magnificent than AI-1 or Wei Kong, who could easily reach the top 3 if they participated in the competition. For more, visit lighten/ovalpub.com. I'm sure. I cannot even begin to imagine how much Shed practiced since then for her to reach this level in such a short time. The audience was blown away by Fei Yuan's performance, completely oblivious to the fact that her improvements were due to practicing with Yuan, and it was only for 1 short week. Chapter 206 Yuan's 3 music notes. Clap clap clap. A few moments after Fei Yuan played her 3 music notes, Senior Zhou suddenly began clapping his hands, and he spoke in a praising voice. I don't even know where to begin, Disciple Fei. I have witnessed your performance in the previous competition, and if I had listened to your performance just now while blindfolded, I would have never guessed that it was you playing the zither. After taking a deep breath, he continued to speak. If you were to participate in the previous competition in your current condition, I have no doubt that you would be able to achieve first place easily. 10 points from me. Thank you for your praises, Senior Zhou. Fei Yuan stood up and bowed to him. A few seconds later, Elder Jing said, while this is my first time seeing you play the zither, I have no qualms claiming that you're as talented as AI-1 and Wei Kong after listening to those 3 music notes alone. 10 points from me as well, and I am excited to see what else you have in store for us later. Thank you, Elder Jing. Fei Yuan said to him before turning to look at Songlinger, who was staring at her with a profound expression. After a moment of silence, Songlinger spoke. Where did you learn to play the zither? To her surprise as well as everyone there, Songlinger had asked her a question instead of giving her verdict. I learned to play the zither by myself as it was only a hobby at first. Senior Song. Follow current novels on /lightnovelpub/. Hearing her response, Songlinger continued to ask, how do you usually practice? I don't have any special practice routines, and I only practice by playing the zither normally, a few hours every week. However, I have changed things up very recently by practicing with my partner, who has contributed a lot to my improvements. Fei Yuan explained. This girl, she's managed to reach such a high level of zither arts without a proper master? And she's also from the Dragon Essence Temple? Why are there so many talented musicians at the Dragon Essence Temple, when they don't belong there at all? Songlinger cried inwardly after realizing that Fei Yuan was mostly another genius with talent equal if not even greater than her current disciples, and her envy towards the Dragon Essence Temple increased some more. After a moment of silence, Songlinger finally gave her verdict. 9 points from me. Thank you, Senior Song. Fei Yuan bowed to her. Wow. She actually received 9 points from Senior Fairy Song. Does this mean Senior Fairy Song recognizes Fairy Faye's talents to be similar to her own disciples? Well, she definitely deserves it. If her partner doesn't drag her down, there's a good chance that her team will become top 10, even top 3. Meanwhile, AI-1 and Wei Kong turned to look at Fei Yuan with narrowed eyes, wondering if she was the person Songlinger was talking about when she warned them of an exceptional genius that will be in the competition. Follow current novels on li/t/no//pub. A few moments later, everybody in the audience turned to look at the next participant. A somewhat slender figure wearing a black jade mask on his face. What the heck? Why's he wearing a mask? What an oddball. He's even the only person wearing a mask there. This is Fairy Faye's partner? I hope his Zither arts won't become a burden. The people there already began looking down on Yuan before his performance even began. Oh boy. Senior Zhou sighed inwardly, wondering what's going to happen now that they've finally reached this unknown prodigy, who could defeat even Songlinger in a one-on-one battle. Wait a second. I recognize him. He was at the park yesterday. Someone in the crowd suddenly shouted in a surprised voice, dumbfounding the people around him. Park. What park? The source of this content is Light Novel Pub. Come on. I was there too. He was the one who was challenged by Senior Fairy Song to a Zither battle, even defeating her one-on-one. What kind of nonsense is that? Senior Fairy Song is the #1 Zither expert in the lower heavens. As if someone in this place could defeat her in a one-on-one Zither battle. Trust me, I completely understand why you'd be suspicious, because I would be too if I didn't witness it for myself. But once you listen to him play the Zither, you'll understand what I said is true. I couldn't sleep last night because his Zither music was stuck inside my head. Songlinger's eyebrows twitched uncontrollably after hearing the crowd's conversation. Yet there was nothing she could say about it. Ahem. Senior Zhou suddenly cleared his throat loudly, causing a small ripple to sweep the place, quickly silencing the noise. Go ahead. You may begin. Elder Jing said to Yuan shortly after the place calmed down, completely oblivious of the other two judges that were acting slightly strange. Yuan nodded his head and proceeded to place his fingers gently on the string without actually touching the strings. The most up-to-date novels are published on lightnovelp/ub/. After taking a deep breath, Yuan pulled on the string with his fingers, creating 3 music notes that actually sounded as though it was only one note, almost like Head played the 3 notes simultaneously, and an otherworldly sound echoed in the place. When the audience heard this music note, their eyes immediately widened with surprise, as they could somehow see the image of an incredibly beautiful flower field in front of them. What the heck? Am I seeing things? Why do I suddenly see flowers? I am seeing it too. The entire area is filled with beautiful flowers. This is. The judges' eyes widened with shock when they realized what was happening. His music note was so profound that it created an illusion for anyone that heard it. This level of Zither art is simply legendary. And as far as my knowledge goes, only the Zither goddess has managed to produce this phenomenon before, and had managed to achieve this same phenomenon using only an ordinary Zither. Senior Zhou unconsciously stood up on the platform and stared at Yuan with a gawking look on his face. Chapter 207. Playing seriously. Heavens! Who on earth is that participant? Elder Jing mumbled in a dazed voice as he stared at the figure wearing a black jade mask with wide eyes. This Yuan. He wasn't using all of his abilities during our one-on-one? Was he looking down on me? Songlinger stared at Yuan with clear disbelief in her eyes. It was simply unthinkable that someone would look down on her. The sect master of the Heavenly Melody Academy, feeling an indescribable sensation in her heart after learning this. Of course, Yuan wasn't purposefully looking down on Songlinger during their one-on-one. It was just that he didn't feel being so serious in a friendly competition between 2 Zither players, and he saw it more of a friendly spar. However, as someone who was conditioned to perform his very best during competitions, now that he was actually participating in one, had unconsciously flipped his serious switch on and played the Zither with absolute focus and seriousness, especially since this is a music competition. Meanwhile, the audience and the participants alike stared at Yuan with shock and disbelief written all over their faces. Although most of the spectators didn't comprehend the situation, and just how amazing Yuan's performance just now truly was, they knew that it was the best thing they've heard today and most likely their entire lives. As for the other participants, they were gobsmacked by Yuan's performance, and they could still see the illusion of flowers even though many moments had passed since they heard the 3 music notes. Yu. Even Fei Yuyan was staring at Yuan with a gawking expression on her face, feeling her heart racing at this moment. After a long moment of silence that lasted for a few minutes, Songlinger finally snapped out of her daze, and for the first time in this competition, she gave a verdict first, 10 points. This content is taken from Light Novel Pub/com. However, she didn't say anything else. No praises, no opinions, nothing, almost like she was speechless. Senior Zhou and Elder Jing followed a moment later. And they also only gave their verdict without any other words. 10 points, 10 points. Despite having the first participant to receive a perfect score in this competition, the audience did not explode with excitement or cheering and remained relatively silent, most likely because they were still trying to grasp the situation. By the time most of these spectators returned to their senses, the judges had already given their verdict and moved on to the next team. However, the next team did not seem to be in the right mindset when it was finally their turn, and when they tried to play the zither, it sounded almost as though it was their first time touching the zither, or they'd completely forgotten how to play it. 0 points. 0 from me as well. Visit light/novel/p/ub/com for the best novel reading experience. 0. The 3 judges quickly gave their verdict, and for the first time in this competition, right after the first perfect score, the first lowest possible score was achieved. And to the audience's surprise, this continued to happen for the next few teams as well. It was almost like every participant that went after Yuan had suddenly lost their ability to play the zither. This greatly baffled the audience, making them wonder if Yuan had purposefully screwed with the other participants, which should be considered cheating. However, the judges didn't say anything about it, so there was nothing the audience could say. Even when someone wanted to raise their voice, they would suddenly recall Yuan's otherworldly performance, which quickly made them change their mind. After all, there was no need for someone with such talents to cheat in a competition. An hour later, the final team received their verdict for the first part of the competition. And by the end of the first part of the competition, over half of the participants were disqualified due to their unsatisfactory results with only a few hundred teams left. That is the end of the first part, Senior Zhou said, and he continued, for the second part of the competition, we will have the teams play a song together. Finally we get to listen to some real music. New novel chapters are published on lightnovel.ub/com. I have been waiting for this. The audience was hyped. Although the first part of the competition was exciting in its own ways, it was too short for the audience to truly immerse themselves in the music, as it would end after 3 quick notes. Sometime later, Senior Zhou continued. Since this is a partnered competition, you should have practiced with your partner. Therefore, we'll let you decide on the songs you want to play. You have 3 minutes to perform, but any of us judges can decide to cut it short if they find it displeasing to the ears. Senior Zhou then pointed to the team in the front and said, "We'll start from you. You have 1 minute to discuss with your partner and prepare for your song. As for the other teams, you are not allowed to talk with each other until it's your turn, or you will be automatically disqualified. Begin." Immediately, the 2 people in that team began talking with each other, deciding which song they should play. 30 seconds later, the participants took a deep breath and began playing the zither simultaneously. A very pleasant-sounding noise flowed throughout the area and into the audience's ears. The majority of the audience was quickly attracted by the music and became immersed in it. This content is taken from lightnovel.l/pub.com. However, 30 seconds into the song, when the team made their first mistake with a single out-of-tune note, Songlinger's voice resounded. "That's enough." The music immediately stopped after her words resounded, and the participants lifted their heads to look at Songlinger's face that had a slight frown on her beautiful face, their back and forehead soaked in cold sweats. This is a team competition, not a solo. You've clearly not practiced with each other enough to screw up so early into the song. You're disqualified. Songlinger said a moment later in a cold voice, crushing that team's hopes into pieces. Chapter 208 God Descends from Heaven. After the first team was disqualified, they continued on to the second team, who was shaking a little, obviously quite nervous after seeing what happened. Begin. Senior Zhou said to them. 55 seconds later, the team began playing their music. Luckily for this team, they'd managed to calm down enough within those 55 seconds to play more than half of the song without making any mistakes. However, in the end they made a couple of mistakes towards the end, which resulted in even more mistakes because they thought Song Linger was going to immediately disqualify them for a single mistake. But to their surprise, Song Linger did not disqualify them right away. Once the judgment began, Senior Zhou said, "It was pretty decent at the beginning, but after your first mistake, like a ripple effect, the rest of your song became riddled with mistakes. 2 points. I enjoyed the first half, so we'll give you 3 points at the very least," said Elder Jing. Song Linger then said, 0 points. You're disqualified. The third team began playing their song a couple of moments later. New novel chapters are published on lightno/velp/u/b/com, but alas, just like the first team, they were immediately disqualified by Song Linger after their first mistake before the 30-second mark. It looks like Senior Fairy Song intends on disqualifying those who make mistakes early. Man, I cannot imagine what it would be like to be one of her disciples. They must be under a lot of stress with her straight and unforgiving character. If you want to be the very best, you have to sacrifice some things in your life. Half an hour and a dozen disqualified teams later, the first team to make 0 mistakes during their performance finally appeared. Finally, someone competent. Senior Zhou said, and he continued, "The performance was pretty amazing overall. Your music notes were in sync, the pace was neither too fast nor too slow, and your techniques were smooth and precise. 10 points from me." "I agree with Senior Zhou. 10 points from me as well," Elder Jing said. 7 points. Song Linger said, surprising the audience with her high score. Who are those two? They also received somewhat high scores from Senior Fairy Song in the last part as well. Visit lightnov/lpub.com for a better experience. Some of the audience that did not recognize the team then asked the others. That's Zhao Jiyu and Zhao Qingjiao. They're siblings that placed second and third in the last competition. Wow. Second and third place. Their family must be grinning from ear to ear. A couple of hours later, it was finally Yuan and Wei Kang's turn to perform once again, and the audience immediately straightened their backs with some even leaning forward from anticipation. "What song should we play?" Yuan asked Wei Kang. "God Descends from Heaven." Wei Kang quickly responded without hesitation. "What? You want to play God Descends from Heaven? That's one of the most difficult songs in existence. There's no way we can play this song without making any mistakes," Yuan said to him with a look of surprise on her face. And she continued, "We're already behind that team with Fei Yuyan and that mysterious masked person. We cannot risk losing any more points. They are exactly the reason why we must take this risk. Do you think we'll defeat them without going all out? Did you not hear that masked person's 3 music notes? There's no way we can defeat someone like that if we don't go all out." The source of this content is l/itnovelp/u/b. Komaiwan turned silent for a moment after hearing Wei Kang's words, and then she nodded a moment later with a serious expression on her face. "You're right, Wei Kang. Our master told us to not be complacent. If we don't take this seriously and lose first place, we'll be a laughing stock." "Are you ready?" Senior Zhou asked them since they took a little over a minute to discuss. "Yes, we are," Wei Kang said to him. A few seconds later, the two of them began playing the Zither, and a dozen unique music notes appeared in quick succession, dumbfounding the audience with their face-paced music. This song is God Descends from Heaven, one of the most difficult songs in this world with over 10,000 music notes, and they're going to play this in a competition. As expected of Senior Fairy Song's disciples, they're very bold. Heavens! Look at how fast they're playing the Zither. Legends has it that a god had descended to the lower heavens from the upper realms when this song was first created, hence its name. Meanwhile, Senior Zhou and Elder Jing looked at Yuan and Wei Kang with surprised looks on their faces. Even they can't play the God Descends from Heaven song perfectly. Yet these two are going to play it in a duet during a competition? And as one would have expected, Yuan and Wei Kang made plenty of mistakes during their performance. Over 100 mistakes before the 30-second mark. Yet Song Linger did not disqualify them, and allowed them to continue to play this seemingly impossible song. Updated from /lightnovelp/ub/com. However, they were also playing the music too quickly for most people to notice these mistakes, So only the top experts like the judges were able to discern these mistakes. What fast-paced, chaotic music! This is my first time hearing such a song. Yuan glared at these two people with narrowed eyes, clearly piqued by their music. Exactly 3 minutes later, AI Yuan and Wei Kong stopped playing at the exact same time with their last music note rippling throughout the place, their faces and bodies soaked in sweat. 3 seconds later, once the audience realized that the music had stopped, the entire place exploded with cheering that shook the atmosphere there. Sometime later, Senior Zhou said while clapping, "Even though there were many mistakes in your performance, I cannot help but still admire your courage for playing this song during a competition, even playing it to the end without any major mistakes or obvious off-syncs. And this is my first time hearing the God Descends from Heaven song during a competition, despite my experience. Therefore, I am going to give you 10 points. Chapter 209 Perfectly in Sync. After Senior Zhou's verdict, Elder Jing spoke. Above and beyond. That's all I can say. 10 points from me as well. Everybody then turned to look at Song Linger, who nodded her head and said, I see that you've finally understood the situation you're in, Wei Kong. Yes, master. Wei Kong said with a serious look on his face. Although there were many mistakes in your performance, I do not expect anyone to play the God Descends from Heaven song perfectly, especially not in a duet. You get 9 points from me. The crowd cheered after hearing Song Linger's verdict. Although it was not a perfect score, neither was their performance, so it was fully justified for once. Thank you, master. AI Yuan and Wei Kong bowed to her before sitting back down, and exchanging satisfied looks with each other. Then they turned to look at Yuan, who was calmly sitting there, and staring at his Zither with a pondering gaze. What's he thinking about? They couldn't help but wonder to themselves after seeing Yuan's bright eyes that gave them an ominous feeling for some reason. The competition continued, and just like previously, after AI Yuan and Wei King's performance, the rest of the participants appeared to be lacking in their performance, causing the audience to grow bored. Sometime later, when they finally reached Yuan's team, the audience immediately straightened their backs and widened their eyes with anticipation flickering within. The source of this content is lig/tnovelpub. C/om it's them. Fairy Faye and her mysterious partner. I wonder what kind of surprise they'll bring this time, and how their performance will compare to AI Yuan and Wei Kang's performance. Meanwhile, Fei Yuan asked Yuan, what song should we play? However, almost as though he couldn't hear her, Yuan remained silent and continued staring at his Zither with a dazed look on his face. Disciple Yuan? Fei Yuan called out to him again. I'm sorry, I was thinking about something. What did you just say? Yuan snapped out of his daze and turned to look at her with a puzzled look on his face. It's our turn to perform, Fei Yuan said with her eyebrows raised, and she continued. What song should we play? After Senior Song's disciples' performance, it'll be hard for us to compete since we don't know any difficult songs like God's Descending from Heaven. Yuan then said, do you remember that one song we played during our practice when we stayed up all night? Let's play that song. Fei Yuyan's eyes widened, and then she said, are you sure about that? That song. It's too unique. What if the judges don't like it? I think it'd be safer if we played one of my songs. New novel chapters are published on li/g/htn/ovalpub/. Come, it'll be fine. It may be a bit unique compared to the music you're used to, but this is a competition to see how well we can play the song as partners. Anyway, just play as we did during practice. I'll follow your pace. Yuan said to her with a smile behind his mask. Fei Yuyan nodded with a serious look on her face, and then she turned to look at her Zither. I cannot be a burden to Yuan. After taking a deep breath, Fei Yuyan moved her slender arms and began playing the Zither with her fair hands. Yuan followed Fei Yuyan's movements and played the Zither at the exact time she did. What kind of music is this? The audience was immediately taken aback by the unique-sounding music that had a theme they've never heard before. However, not every single spectator in the audience was unfamiliar with this type of music. Wait a second. Why does this music sound so familiar? The source of this content is Light Novel Pub. Com. Hey. That's a famous song from our world. Why do they know such a song? The players in the audience were baffled once they realized that this song being played was a song from their modern world, especially the players that were among the participants there. Unless a fellow player taught them this song, there was only one other reason why they would know this song. One of them was a player. And since most of the NPCs there knew Fei Yuan, it could only mean that the figure wearing the black jade mask was a player. That person was a fellow player this entire time? My God! Why is he so good at the Zither already? Did he pick up the Zither the moment he started playing this game? Just who is behind that black mask? The participants that were players wondered. Meanwhile, the judges were baffled by not only the unique song, but also their perfect performance that flowed smoothly, and was also flawlessly in sync. In their eyes, it was almost as though Yuan and Fei Yuan had become a single entity playing one song. This is. Song Linger almost couldn't believe her eyes. Impossible. The reason they sound so perfectly in sync is not because they are used to playing together. It's because Yuan is following Fei Yuan's rhythm flawlessly. The source of this content is light/no/v/lpub/com. Although most of the people there may not be aware of the situation, Song Linger knew exactly how shocking Yuan's performance was. While Fei Yuan only needed to play the song at her own pace, Yuan had to imitate Fei Yuan's movements and follow her pace without making any mistakes. It was an incredibly difficult thing to do even for top experts, and only those who fully grasped their partner's skills would be able to achieve such a thing. Of course, even Fei Yuan herself was not aware of this, and she continued to play the Zither innocently. A few minutes later, Fei Yuan stopped playing the Zither, and the music immediately halted without any delays, almost like she was the only one who was playing the Zither this entire time. However, the audience appeared to be a little puzzled afterward. Is it just me, or was their performance a little bit disappointing? It didn't have the same impact as their previous performance, right? Although the song was unique and very pleasant sounding, it wasn't as exciting as I thought it'd be. Compared to AI Yuan and Wei Kong, their performance is definitely lacking. Completely oblivious to the real performance behind Yuan and Fei Yuan's show just now, the audience expressed their disappointment. Updated from lightnovelpub.com. Chapter 2 10-13 points. After Yuan and Fei Yuan's performance, the judges pondered before giving their verdict. Elder Jing turned to look at Senior Zhou and Song Linger. Since he was the least experienced out of the three, he wanted to let the experts go first so that his judgment isn't too far off, causing him to lose face. However, neither Senior Zhou nor Song Linger spoke even many moments later, causing Elder Jing to raise his eyebrows. Then he turned to look at Yuan and Fei Yuan. After clearing his throat, Elder Jing gave his verdict first for the first time. This is my first time hearing such unique music, and I must say, it was definitely a positive new experience overall. The synchronization between the two of you was also fantastic. However, compared to your previous performance, especially you, young man in the black mask, it was quite lacking and a disappointment if I am being honest. I had expected much more, but alas, 7 points from me. The audience was silent throughout Elder Jing's verdict, and nobody made any noises afterward, as they also felt that it was quite a fair assessment. However, Senior Zhou and Song Linger turned to look at Elder Jing with frowns on their faces. This guy. He also couldn't fathom their performance? Senior Zhou was speechless, but he wasn't too shocked, since he also almost missed it. Senior Zhou then turned to look at Song Linger, who held a frown even deeper than his own on her beautiful face, causing him to swallow nervously. The source of this content is lightnovelpub.com. I will give you 10 points. Senior Zhou suddenly said, dumbfounding Elder Jing and the audience. What? 10 points? Are you sure about your verdict, Taoist Zhou? I don't mean to doubt your judgment, but how could you give them a similar score to what you gave AI Yuan and Wei Kong, who was clearly superior? I hope you aren't still affected by their previous performance. Elder Jing couldn't help but question Senior Zhou's decision. Senior Zhou shook his head and said, let Senior Song explain. They turned to look at Song Linger, who spoke in a calm yet cold voice a moment later. If you cannot fathom why Taoist Zhou gave them 10 points instead of a disgraceful 7 points, You do not qualify to be a judge in this competition. If not for my respect for the Heaven and Earth Palace, I would have you removed from your position as judge already." After her cold remarks, shocking Elder Jing, Songlinger turned to look at Fei Yuan and Yuan. "Once again, you have exceeded my expectations. 10. No, 13 points from me," Songlinger said, her gaze directly on Yuan's figure. What? Did Senior Fairy Song just say 13 points? Unless we are all hearing things, I think she did. Is it even possible to give more than 10 points? And why 13 points? The source of this content is lig/ht/novelpub. Maybe it's to make up for Elder Jing's 7 points, making it a total of 30 points. Why would she do that, though? Even Senior Zhou gave them 10 points. I cannot fathom their reasons for doing so. Perhaps there was something about their performance that only those two noticed? After all, they're the judges. The audience went into an uproar after hearing Senior Zhou and Songlinger's puzzling verdict. After all, how could they give Yuan's team a perfect score when AI Yuan and Wei Kong couldn't achieve that kind of score after playing God Descends from Heaven? A song that's objectively harder to play? You must be wondering why I gave you such a score, Songlinger suddenly said as she looked at Fei Yuan's direction, who held a confused look on her face. Upon hearing Songlinger's words, Fei Yuan nodded with a dazed look on her face. While she was pretty satisfied with their performance, she didn't think it was worthy of such a high score. Songlinger then said, "Your performance overall was great, but it wasn't anything too amazing, and it would be worth at most 7 points if not for the other factors." The other factors? Fei Yuan raised her eyebrows. The most up-to-date novels are published on Light Novel Pub. Songlinger nodded and said, "Your partner's performance." Yuan's performance? Songlinger continued. "Your partner displayed a shocking level of talent and skills by following your pace flawlessly, which earned the extra points. I normally wouldn't do something like this, but I know very well that he could have performed much better if he wasn't limited by you. If Head played the Zither at his own level without any restrictions, the performance would have definitely turned out better. However, if Head done that, you would not have been able to play together, simply because of the fact that the disparity between your abilities is just that vast, and this is not a solo competition, so he sacrificed his own performance in order to match yours." Fei Yuan was shocked speechless after learning the real reason behind their verdict, and she turned to look at Yuan with a pained expression on her face. "I'm sorry, Disciple Yuan. It seems like I will be a burden to you no matter what I do," Fei Yuan said to him a moment later with teary eyes. Yuan didn't know what he should say in this situation, since this is the first time he's been put into such an awkward situation. "You don't have to say anything to me. I know that I cannot compare to you, nor can I catch up to you. And that's not your fault. Although I may continue to be a burden until the end of this competition, let's play to the best of our abilities, okay?" Fei Yuan said to him after wiping her eyes and showing him a smile. For more, visit lightnovelp.ub/c/om. After a moment of silence, Yuan suddenly turned to look at Songlinger and said, "I have a suggestion, Senior Song." "What is it?" Songlinger raised her eyebrows in a curious manner. "As you'd said, I didn't perform at my best, and our performance was only above average, so we don't deserve such a high score no matter how you spin it. Therefore, allow me, by myself, to play another song to make up for the points, or at least justify it somewhat," Yuan said, surprising her and everyone there. Chapter 211 Temporary Buff. "You want to play a song by yourself?" Songlinger raised her eyebrows. Under normal circumstances, that would not be allowed, as this is a competition, a partnered competition. However, she really wanted to listen to Yuan play the Zither seriously by himself, even if it would invalidate the integrity of the competition. After all, in her eyes, he was going to win this competition regardless. "Okay, go ahead." Songlinger nodded her head a moment later, surprising the audience. "Senior Song, are you sure? This isn't part of the competition," Elder Jing said in a nervous voice. "Who cares? If he wants to play, let him play," Senior Zhou said with a smile on his face. "You too, Taoist Zhou?" Elder Jing was dumbfounded. Why did they want to listen to this participant play so much? It was almost as though they were subtly favoring him. Thank you, seniors, Yuan said to them before focusing on the zither. He then closed his eyes to recall a certain fast-paced song that was played only recently. A few moments later, after taking a deep breath, Yuan began playing the zither, and his hands moved with extreme speed. Ting. Visit li/gh/tnovelpub.com for a better experience. A very familiar sounding song began playing, dumbfounding the audience and the judges alike. This song is God Descends from Heaven. He's actually playing God Descends from Heaven. So he actually knows this song as well. Songlinger and the other judges watched with bulging eyes as Yuan played God Descends from Heaven flawlessly, and at a pace that sounded even faster than AI1 and Wei Kong when they performed. Meanwhile, Fei Yuyan stared at Yuan with a gawking expression on her face. Although nobody else there was aware, she knew that not only did Yuan start playing the zither only a week ago, but he has also never heard or played the song God Descends from Heaven until today. He can play God Descends from Heaven after listening to it a single time? Just how heaven-defying are his musical talents? How does his mind operate? Fei Yuyan couldn't help but cry inwardly. Feeling like this is Yuan's most shocking moment to date. This guy is a fucking monster. How can he play one of the most difficult songs with seemingly no effort at all? Wei Kong cursed inwardly as he watched Yuan's finger movements flow as smoothly as water and with precision, almost like he was a music machine or something similar. I'll look behind him. Am I seeing things, or is there someone floating behind him? One of the spectators suddenly pointed at Yuan and shouted in a shocked voice. The source of this content is /l///itnovelpub. Come, no, you're right. I also see it. What a beauty. This must be another illusion. It's almost like a goddess has descended from the heavens because of his music. The audience was shocked when a beautiful young lady with peerless features suddenly appeared behind Yuan halfway through the song like a spirit guardian watching over him. That's. Senior Zhou shook uncontrollably and stood up after seeing the beautiful figure floating behind Yuan. Although it took a moment for him to recognize her face, it was without doubt the Zither goddess behind Yuan. Why am I seeing the illusion of the Zither goddess behind him? What's the meaning of this? Meanwhile, Songlinger subconsciously placed her hands onto her chest, and she could feel her heart beating almost as fast as Yuan was playing the zither. Exactly 3 minutes later, Yuan stopped playing the zither with the last music note, creating a ripple that spread throughout the area and snapping everyone out of their daze. Visit light/novelpub ///com for the best novel reading experience. As for the players there, a notification popped up for them. Your stats has been increased by 10% for 30 minutes from the effects of God Descending from Heaven. To their surprise, they'd received a temporary buff after listening to Yuan's zither arts. Phew. What an amazing song. Yuan took a deep breath after the song ended, feeling extremely satisfied despite making a couple of mistakes. In fact, one of the major reasons why he suggested playing a song by himself was simply so that he could play God Descends from Heaven while it was still fresh inside his mind, even using the score as an excuse to play the song. Yuan then turned to look at the judges and said, I have finished. Thank you for listening to my selfish request. The place turned dead silent, to the point where even a pin drop could be heard miles away. Sometime later, Songlinger said in a somewhat shaky voice, I think I have seen enough today. What do you mean by that, Senior Song? Elder Jing couldn't help but ask her. The source of this content is lig//tno/velpub/com. Songlinger then stood up and said in a loud and clear voice, There's no need for us to continue this when the results are clear. Therefore, I am ending this competition here. What? The audience, participants, and judges alike stared at Songlinger with disbelief in their eyes, as they couldn't believe that she'd cut the competition short just like that. However, if they thought about it, after witnessing Yuan's performance, it was clear who would receive first place, so Songlinger's decision made some sense. As Senior Song. This is a partnered competition. I don't think it'll be fair for the other participants if we end the competition because of a single outstanding participant, Elder Jing said in a nervous tone. Songlinger glared at Elder Jing, but she didn't say anything. She then pointed at the participants and said, "Look at their faces. Do they look like people with the will to continue? And I don't need to sit through the entire competition to know who'll obtain what place." Elder Jing turned to look at the participants, and sure enough, the majority of them held bitter expressions on their faces and their aura without any motivation or confidence. Even if they continued with the competition, their performances would be lackluster at best. What about the second and third place? There has to be more than one winner. Elder Jing then said. Songlinger glanced at the participants before speaking in an indifferent voice. The rewards are too good for them. The second and third place will remain empty. If you have a problem with that, go ahead and challenge me. New novel chapters are published on lightnov/lpub/com. Author's note. Since we've managed to take first place for Win-Win, I will be giving a 5-chapter mass release later, probably sometime during the middle of the month since I am very busy now. Chapter 212. Player Yuan's first public appearance. The place fell into silence once again after Songlinger's domineering words, and the participants trembled at the thought of challenging Songlinger. The participants then turned to look at Yuan, who suddenly looked much bigger than previously, almost like had grown a few sizes. However, that was just their admiration for Yuan, making it seem like he was bigger than normal. After witnessing his godlike performance that seemingly summoned a goddess instead of a god, they did not feel like competing against such a monster. Suddenly, someone within the participants stood up and approached Yuan. The others there turned to look at this individual, who was Wei Kong. Once he was standing before Yuan. To everybody's surprise, Wei Kong lowered his head and bowed to Yuan before speaking in a respectful voice. "Congratulations on winning the competition, senior. You definitely deserve it, even though the whole thing was somewhat abnormal and unprecedented." Oh look. That arrogant Wei Kong is lowering his head to someone else that isn't Senior Fairy Song. I can see that for myself. A few moments later, AI1 followed Wei Kang's footsteps and also bowed to Yuan in a respectful manner. "Hello, Senior. I am AI1, and I would like to thank you for opening my eyes today. This may sound a little disrespectful to my master, but you have broadened my views with your Zither arts. Hopefully, we can play the Zither together in the future." New novel chapters are published on Light Novel Pub. Yuan nodded at them and said, "Thank you. If there's ever a chance, let's play the Zither together." Sometime later, Songlinger asked the other two judges, "Do you have anything else to say? If you are not satisfied with the results, we can talk about it." Senior Zhou quickly shook his head and said, "No, there's no need. I already knew the results of this competition the moment he played the soul-ensnaring Zither before my very eyes. And if I was as daring as you, Senior Song, I would have also ended the competition early. What about you, Elder Jing? Do you have something else to add?" Senior Zhou then asked Elder Jing, who quickly shook his head. "Do whatever you want. I am only here because my sect is sponsoring the competition. Otherwise, I wouldn't even be here." Elder Jing shrugged. "Then it's decided." They turned to look at Songlinger, who nodded. A few moments later, Songlinger turned to look at Yuan and Fei Yuyan, and spoke in a loud voice that resounded clearly. "This concludes the Zither competition. Congratulations to the winners, Fei Yuyan and Yuan from the Dragon Essence Temple, for achieving first place in this competition." What did she just say? Visit lightnovelpu/b.com for a better experience, huh? Did I just hear Yuan? The players there stared at the figure wearing the black jade mask with shocked looks on their faces. Literally 3 seconds later, a large notification appears directly above the competition, confirming the players' doubt. Congratulations to the participants that have attained the top 3 for this event. First place, Player Yuan. Second place, not applicable. Third place, not applicable. Player Yuan's brilliant performance that mesmerized millions of spectators as well as the judges with his Zither arts has achieved first place and will be given a special reward for his achievements. In front of Yuan, a couple of notifications appeared. New novel chapters are published on light/n/ovalpub/com. Due to your performance in the Zither competition, you have gained a massive amount of fame. Fame plus 1000. You have gained the title Zither Prodigy for obtaining first place in the Zither competition. Because of your title Zither Prodigy, spiritual music played from a Zither will have an enhanced effect, increasing its buff strength by 50%. What? He's really player Yuan, the currently leading player who's rumored to be a cheater. Impossible. I thought he was a little girl. I knew I couldn't have trusted those bullshit rumors. So that's player Yuan. He's somehow exactly as I imagined. Mysterious and all. The players were excited to see this infamous player Yuan for the first time with their very eyes, as there have been only speculations about his existence this entire time. In fact, some of them even believed that Yuan was created by the creators of this game to fool the players. Does this mean he's really a player, and not some NPC created by the creators? Heavens! I can see the forums exploding once they find out about this. The source of this content is Light Novel Pub. They said he's from the Dragon Essence Temple, right? This is huge news. Maybe we'll even get to speak with him soon. Meanwhile, the players within the participants felt an urge to approach Yuan and speak with him, perhaps even shake his hands. But alas, Songlinger had just left the judge's platform and stood before Yuan, preventing anybody from approaching them with her immense aura. Follow me so I can distribute your rewards for your achievements, Songlinger said to them. Fei Yuyan and Yuan nodded, and they followed Songlinger into the building, leaving everyone else behind. Once Yuan left the area, the players there immediately began logging out of the game and jumping straight into the forums for Cultivation Online, spamming the place with new threads. Breaking news! Player Yuan has appeared in the Zither competition. Shocking new information about Player Yuan has surfaced. Player Yuan is currently a disciple at the Dragon Essence Temple. The online forums were bombarded with new threads regarding Yuan, and the forums quickly flared with excitement from this new information. This content is taken from lighten/uvel/pub. C/om. The news traveled so fast that Uro, who was still at school, was already hearing about it. Did you hear? They say player Yuan has appeared in the Zither competition that a couple of our students had participated in. This is his first public appearance ever. What? Really? What did he look like? He was wearing a mask so they couldn't see his face properly, but he was a tall and slender man. So he wasn't a little girl? I was right to not listen to the previous rumors regarding his gender. Anyway, this is huge news. I'm sure there will be a lot of people visiting the Dragon Essence Temple now that they know his whereabouts. Chapter 213 Zither Competition Rewards. They're talking about Brother Tian? Uro listened to the conversation between her classmates without turning to look at them, as she didn't want to make it seem like she was interested. However, Meisha was a different case, and she listened to the conversation while looking at them with a pondering look on her face. Player Yuan first place? If I remember correctly, the young master is also participating in a music competition inside the game. Meisha thought to herself. As someone who has been with the sibling for her entire life, she knew very well the extent of Yu Tian's talents, and she found it hard to believe that someone other than Yu Tian would achieve first place in a music competition. In fact, Yu Tian has never received anything lower than first place, so it was always expected that he would achieve first place no matter what kind of competition he participated in. Perhaps the young master is participating in a different competition? After all, I heard the world is countless times larger than our own world. Sister Ro. Someone suddenly approached Uro from behind and called out to her. Uro turned around to see an innocent-looking young lady with long wavy brown hair, a slim figure, and two large meat buns on her chest standing behind her. Xiaojingi. Uro smiled at her. It's time for lunch, Sister Ro. Let's go eat. The source of this content is lightnovel/pub/forward/com. Okay. Uro nodded and stood up from her seat before following this pretty young lady outside. On her way outside, the other classmates in the room watched her leave without turning their heads, their gazes filled with admiration and respect. Once they were outside the classroom, Uro and Xiaojingi went to sit at a clean table somewhere in the large courtyard in the middle of the school. Hey, race your lunch, young lady. Meisho placed a large and luxurious-looking lunchbox on the table. Thank you, Meishio. You can also take a seat and eat with us, Yuro said to her. However, Meishio shook her head and said, I'm afraid I cannot act so familiar with the young lady at school. Yuro sighed. Do whatever you want. After eating their lunch quickly but elegantly, Xiaojingyi said, Sister Ro, I'm sure you've heard by now about player Yuan. He's made another appearance. A public one this time. A smile appeared on Yu Rao's face and she said, Of course. After all, everyone else in my class was talking about it. I would hear about it even if I didn't want to. New novel chapters are published on Lee/GHT/novelpub. C/OM. I almost couldn't believe it when I heard it. To think player Yuan is also a musical genius. It's almost like there's nothing in this world that he cannot do. Xiaojingyi said in an excited voice, her admiration for player Yuan as clear as day. You really admire this player Yuan, huh? Yuro said with a somewhat mysterious smile on her face. Even though Xiaojingyi is her best friend for many years, and someone she trusts fully, she never thought about revealing Yuan's real identity to her. Of course, everything about his existence intrigues me. Aren't you also curious about his background? His real identity? Xiaojingyi said to her. Well, I was, Yuro said in a somewhat awkward voice. Past tense? What's that supposed to mean? Did you lose interest? Xiaojingyi looked at her with raised eyebrows. Something like that. Yuro nodded. And she continued. What are you going to do if you learn his identity anyway? I don't know, but I'll probably ask him to be my friend or something. Follow current novels on Light Novel Pub. /C/OM your friend? Yuro couldn't help but chuckle at her words. Anyway, are you ready to play Cultivation online with me this weekend? I will be playing the game for the first time tonight. Xiaojingyi asked her. Yuro nodded and said, just let me know where you start and I'll see if we can play together. Okay. I'll let you know tomorrow. Xiaojingyi said. Sometime later, they returned to their classrooms to continue with their school day. Meanwhile, inside the game, Yuan followed Songlinger to this small room somewhere inside the building. Since you've achieved first place and there is no second or third place, I'll give you the rewards for first place as well as second place, said Songlinger as she retrieved the treasures and placed them onto the table. Fei Yuyan stared at the divine grade Zither and divine rank Zither arts with a dazed look on her face, as this is her first time being so close to something so precious. Wow. So this is what a divine grade treasure looks like. The most up-to-date novels are published on lig/novelpu/b/com. However, Fei Yuyan quickly shook her head. And then she turned to look at Yuan and said, Go ahead, disciple Yuan. You can take the rewards for the first place, and I'll settle with the second place rewards. After all, you are the only reason we've made it this far, and I am not shameless enough to ask for something so precious when I know that I don't deserve it. Are you sure? We entered this competition as a team, so regardless of our contribution, we should share the rewards, Yuan said to her. Disciple Yuan. A sweet smile appeared on Fei Yuyan's face, but she insisted that he accept the treasure. I know that you're trying to make me feel better, but don't. You'll actually make me feel worse and filled with guilt if I accepted the first place rewards. Yuan remained silent for a moment to ponder. A few moments later he said, How about this? I'll take the divine grade Zither, and I'll also take the divine rank Zither arts. However, I'll only keep the divine rank Zither arts until I learn the technique, and I'll give it to you right after I am done with it, so that you can use it as well. It'll only be a few days at most. A few days at most. But this is a divine rank technique we're talking about. Fei Yuyan and Songlinger stared at Yuan with wide eyes filled with disbelief. Chapter 214 End of the Zither competition. Why you don't have to give yourself a deadline, disciple Yuan. You can give it to me whenever you are finished with it. There's no need to rush it. I highly doubt anybody can learn a divine rank technique in just a few days. Zither arts may not be as complicated as some cultivation techniques, but it's still a divine rank technique nevertheless. Fei Yuyan said to Yuan after hearing his words that sounded like bragging. Okay. Yuan didn't argue with Fei Yuyan, and nodded his head before tossing the divine grade Zither, and the divine rank Zither arts into his spatial ring. Congratulations! You have obtained a divine grade treasure. Congratulations! You have obtained a divine rank technique. After accepting the rewards, a notification appeared in the sky for all of the players to see. Player Yuan has obtained a divine grade treasure. Player Yuan has become the first player to have obtained a divine grade treasure. Once both Yuan and Fei Yuyan stored away their treasures, Songlinger said to them, "Now that I've given you one of the rewards, let's continue on to the second reward." There are more rewards? Fei Yuyan looked at Songlinger with wide eyes. Songlinger nodded her head and said, "Did you already forget what I said at the beginning of the competition? That I would accept the first place as my disciples? Visit lightno/velpub/com for the best novel reading experience." Why, you mean? You want to accept us as your own disciples? You weren't joking about that? Fei Yuyan's jaw dropped to the ground. After all, she could have never imagined that she would one day have the opportunity to become the famous Songlinger's disciple. Why would I joke about something like that before so many people? Songlinger responded with a serious look on her face. Though to tell you the truth, I originally only wanted to accept Yuan as my disciple, but after seeing your talents that could compete even with my current disciples, I have decided to also make you my disciple. Songlinger said to Fei Yuyan, not hiding her true intentions. But we're still disciples of the Dragon Essence Temple. We cannot just accept someone from another sect as our master, especially me, since I am already a core disciple. Fei Yuyan said to her, mostly as an excuse. I'll be fine. What I will be teaching you will not interfere with the Dragon Essence Temple's teachings, and I will even speak to your sect master about this. Furthermore, it's not impossible to accept a master from another sect, since that has happened many times in the past. Songlinger then turned to Yuan and continued. I know you don't want to leave the Dragon Essence Temple, so I'll allow you to stay at the Dragon Essence Temple while being my disciple at the same time. This way, you won't have to leave your sect while being able to study under me at the same time. However, Yuan said, I appreciate your considerations, Senior Song, but I really don't intend on focusing on the Zither too much. After all, I am already studying the sword and the dagger. You're what? Both Fei Yuyan and Songlinger stared at him with wide eyes again. Visit lightnovelpub/com for the best novel reading experience. Seeing their expressions that were filled with disbelief, Yuan decided to retrieve the Empyrean Overlord and the Starry Abyss to prove to them that he indeed practiced with swords and daggers. See, I am playing the Zither mostly as a hobby, and I do not intend on focusing too much on it. That's ridiculous. How can you toss away such a heaven-sent talent like this? I won't allow it. Songlinger said with a frown on her face, clearly unwilling to see someone as talented as Yuan letting his talent go to waste. And before Yuan could even respond, Fei Yuyan spoke. I have to agree with Senior Song here, Disciple Yuan. You have the capabilities to become one of the greatest Zither experts in the world. Why would you not focus on this path instead? Can you at least give us your reason? A bitter smile appeared on Yuan's face, and he proceeded to tell them a little about his past when he was still active as a musician, and how his parents would force him to play, working him like a machine. Although I like music, even love, I simply cannot find myself focusing on music like it's the only thing in my life, as I have already found other things in life that I am interested in. The sword and the dagger are only some of many examples. Perhaps I might return to that path in the future, but for now, while I still can, I want to enjoy everything else this world has to offer. Songlinger and Fei Yuyan remained speechless for a few moments after hearing Yuan's background. New novel chapters are published on Light Novel Pub. Come fine. If you don't want to focus on this path, then I won't force you, since that'll only do more negative than positive. However, that doesn't mean I have given up on you, because I haven't, and I will never abandon someone as talented as you, Yuan. Mark my words, it'll make you serious about music again, even if it's the last thing I do. After saying that, Songlinger turned around and walked out of the room. And just as Yuan and Fei Yuyan prepared to leave the room as well, Elder Shan and Elder Xian appeared before them with Min Li and Xian Wuhan behind them. Congratulations on achieving first place, Disciple Yuan, Disciple Fei. The Dragon Essence Temple will definitely reward you for your contribution, Elder Shan said to them with a wide smile on his face. Did Senior Song do anything weird to you, Disciple Yuan? Elder Shan began patting Yuan all over his body like she was looking for injuries. I am fine, Yuan said in a slightly dazed voice. Congratulations, Yuan. We'll have to celebrate this occasion when we return to the sect, Xian Wuhan said to him. Congratulations, Disciple Yuan, Minli said afterward. Thank you all. Yuan nodded with a bright smile on his face, feeling relieved that he did not disappoint anyone. This content is taken from lightnov/lpub.com. Chapter 215 Group Call. After the Zither competition ended, Yuan and the others returned to the Royal Blossom Hotel for a moment before checking out of the hotel and making their way back to the Dragon Essence Temple on the sect elders' flying treasures. Meanwhile, in the real world, many powerful and influential individuals from over a dozen different families from across the world gathered online in a group call. We have to do something about this player Yuan. He's tearing the Legacy family's reputation to shreds. Every single time his name appears on the announcement, it's a slap to our faces. Even worse, we still don't know his identity. One of the voices said in a serious voice. What do you suggest we do then? We don't know this player's identity, nor does it seem like he wants our money, said another voice. No logical being would refuse status and money unless they already have these. Another person in the group call voiced his opinions. Then what can we do? We cannot allow this player Yuan to continue dominating the game. Has become the most successful and fastest growing game the world's ever seen before, and it will only continue to grow as more people realize its potential. We cannot allow a single person to monopolize it. Since we cannot contact him from the outside, we can only try to contact him from the inside, right? I heard player Yuan had appeared in public for the first time day in a music competition, even obtaining a divine grade treasure and a divine rank technique from it. What? Is that true? Yes, and according to the people that were at this competition, player Yuan is a disciple at the Dragon Essence Temple in the Eastern Continent. Eastern Continent, huh? I have some people from my family in the Eastern Continent who can approach him, but my top player is currently in the Southern Continent, so he won't make it, said a new voice that belonged to a female. New novel chapters are published on lightnov/lpub//com. I also have a couple of players in the Eastern Continent that can try to contact player Yuan, said another voice. No disrespect to your families or players, but I wouldn't suggest sending just any players to approach player Yuan. After all, what if he sees it as a sign of disrespect, that we're underestimating or undervaluing him? I agree with Mr. Jason. If possible, we should have our top players approach him so that he can feel more comfortable and valued. Who here have their top players in the Eastern Continent? What about White Lotus? She's a top player and currently at the Eastern Continent, right? Yes, but she's currently busy in her own sect. I don't think she'll have the time to travel all the way to the Dragon Essence Temple to find him, especially when there's a really important event coming up in the upcoming weeks. The Lightning Emperor is also busy with his own sect, so we cannot ask him to meet player Yuan. Most of the top players are all too busy grinding their own strength, so they don't fall behind player Yuan too much. There's nothing we can do. Speaking of this upcoming event, what was it called again? Mystic Realm? This content is taken from lightnovelpub.com. Yeah, I heard it's one of the biggest events in the lower heavens and every top player is aiming for it. Does this mean player Yuan will also be participating in this event? If that's the case, we can simply wait until the top players meet him during this event. It's less than a month away anyway. While I prefer that we contact him sooner than later, if there are no top players that can meet him now, we can only wait until the Mystic Realm. I don't want to risk offending this player Yuan. Furthermore, he must know some secrets about the game that's allowed him to progress so insanely fast. He might even have relationships with the creators of this game that nobody knows about. If we can learn some of these secrets, Our own players will also be able to progress as fast if not even faster than him. What about the other families? They will surely do everything in their power to contact him. So what? Even if they go to the Dragon Essence Temple, they still need to find player Yuan amongst the thousands of people there. I suggest we send some of our players to the Dragon Essence Temple to investigate. After all, we also don't know his identity. It'll be like finding a needle in a haystack. There's no way someone like player Yuan would be able to hide his identity perfectly. Even if he tries, he's simply too unique. Then it's settled. All of us will send some players to the Dragon Essence Temple to investigate. In fact, see if there are any players from our alliance that are already a disciple there. If you receive any new information regarding player Yuan, notify the rest of us immediately. The source of this content is l/ig/ht/novelpub/. The group call ended shortly later, and the people that were in the call began preparing for their investigation in player Yuan. In fact, these people were not the only ones in a meeting on this day, as similar conversations between other families had occurred after the Zither competition, all planning to approach the Dragon Essence Temple to learn more about this mysterious player Yuan. Welcome back, all of you. I'm relieved to see that all of you have managed to return in one piece. Long Yijuan said to Yuan and the others after they returned to the Dragon Essence Temple. I have already heard about what happened at the Zither competition, so you can spare the explanation. Disciple Yuan, Disciple Fei, your achievements have greatly boosted the Dragon Essence Temple's reputation, and for your contribution, the sect will definitely award you appropriately. For now, go home and get some rest. We'll find you once we are prepared to hand the rewards out. Thank you, Sect Master. Fei Yuyan bowed to him, and Yuan followed. Sometime later, they left the place, leaving Elder Shan and Elder Shan behind with Long Yijuan. Chapter 216. Returning to the Dragon Pavilion. Once Yuan and the other disciples left the place, Long Yijuan turned to look at Elder Shan and Elder Shan with a serious expression on his face. Tell me everything that has happened, he said to them with a listening look on his face. Elder Shan nodded and said, Allow me to explain first. He then proceeded to explain everything that had happened during their time outside the sect, leaving almost no detail out, such as Elder Shan's scandalous behavior. I see. Long Yijuan turned to look at Elder Shan and asked, Do you have anything to add? Only one thing, she quickly responded before continuing. I am certain that there's a spirit grandmaster watching over Disciple Yuan in the shadows. What? Both Long Yijuan and Elder Shan looked at her with wide eyes. Tell me more. Long Yijuan said in a somewhat demanding tone. Visit //lightnovelpub.com for a better experience. Elder Shan nodded, and explained her encounter with Xiaohua's voice that occurred when she got too clingy to Yuan. Qi manifestation. Indeed, only spirit grandmasters would be able to achieve such a feat. Long Yijuan pondered with a serious look on his face. Even as a peak spirit master, he could barely use Qi manifestation, much less make it stiff enough to hit someone with it. If this is really the case, we won't have to worry too much about Disciple Yuan's safety. However, we can't let our guard down even after learning this information. After all, we want to show this spirit grandmaster that we truly care about Disciple Yuan and his well-being. I agree. Elder Shan nodded. Good. Now let's talk about their rewards. How should the sect award them for their contribution? I think they deserve more than just some contribution points, Long Yijuan said. How about we let them cultivate at the Dragon's Peak? Elder Shan suddenly suggested. The Dragon's Peak? That's very generous of you. Elder Shan looked at him with wide eyes. Can I hear your reason for this, Elder Shan? Long Yijuan did not refuse and asked for his reason instead. This content is taken from Light Novel Pub. Simple. Disciple Yuan. I wouldn't have even thought about it if not for Disciple Yuan. However, with his talents, he'll definitely benefit greatly from the Dragon's Peak. Perhaps he'll even feel indebted to us afterward, Elder Shan said. Long Yijuan closed his eyes to ponder. A few moments later he opened his eyes again and mumbled, ID originally planned on letting him enter the Dragon's Peak after the Mystic Realm, and before the Dragon Temple. But if I let him go there before the event, it'll definitely increase our chances of obtaining a higher rank. The other core disciples won't be happy once they learn of this, especially since Disciple Yuan is still an outer court disciple. Elder Shan suddenly said. Good point. The Mystic Realm is only 2 weeks away, and I don't intend on having Disciple Yuan participate as an outer court disciple. Although this is a little bit earlier than scheduled, let's have Disciple Yuan take the inner court disciple examination next week. Long Yijuan said. Sometime later, Elder Tian asked, what about the matter with the carp leaping over Dragon's Gate Tower? Have the participating sects sent their disciples yet? Long Yijuan then said, I was just about to talk about this. Yes, they have already sent their disciples here. We are waiting on just a couple more people to arrive before we begin, and they are expected to arrive tomorrow. I see. At the same time, after leaving the sect master's headquarters, Yuan returned to his own home with the others still following him. Visit lightnovelpub//c/om for a better experience. We should celebrate your victory at the Dragon Pavilion, Xian Wuhan suddenly suggested to them. That's a great idea. The treat will be on me. Fei Yiyan nodded. And then she continued. Of course, I am only treating Disciple Yuan. The two of you can pay for your own food. How stingy, Xian Wuhan snorted. Why should I spend my precious contribution points on you who did nothing for me other than giving me headaches? What did you do to deserve it? Fei Yiyan sneered back without hesitation. Sometime later, Yuan and the others made their way to the Dragon Pavilion. The people there were ecstatic when they saw Fei Yiyan's pretty face at the Dragon Pavilion, because they thought that she had finally decided to practice there again. Welcome back, Senior Apprentice Sister Fei. The stage has been lonely without you lately. Thankfully you're finally back. One of the workers there quickly approached them. Senior Apprentice Sister Xian and Senior Apprentice Sister Min as well. Welcome to the Dragon Pavilion. Follow current novels on light/nov/pub.com. I'm sorry, but I did not come here today to play the Zither. I'm here to eat. Give me your best table. Fei Yiyan said to the disciple who ignored Yuan because he didn't think Yuan was with them at first. Oh, is that so? The disciple showed a disappointed look on his face after learning that Fei Yiyan was only there to eat. Anyway, please follow me. Fei Yiyan and the others proceeded to follow him. However, the disciple frowned when he noticed that Yuan was also following behind them, and he said in a somewhat cold voice, Excuse me, outer court disciple. Unless you're with these seniors, please wait outside. Yuan raised his eyebrows slightly and he said, I am with them. The disciple turned to look at the three beauties who now held a small frown on their faces, and it was at this moment that the disciple realized that had fucked up big time. I deeply apologize for the misunderstanding. The disciple bowed to Yuan. For more, visit lig/ht/novelpub//com. Just bring us to our table. Fei Yiyan said. All right away. The disciple turned around and led them to their table shortly later. Please take your time looking at the menu, seniors. I have another table to attend to, so I'll go look for a replacement now. The disciple then scurried away without returning, almost like he didn't dare to continue being around them after his mistake, and he went to find another worker there to serve them. A few minutes later, a disciple with a familiar face, Chu Bo, who had served Yuan previously, appeared before them to take their orders. Author's note. This might come as a surprise, but check out my new novel Inferior Cultivation System if you like OPMC, Smart MC, Knowledgeable MC, Systems, and face slapping. Don't worry, it won't affect my release rate for Cultivation Online. Chapter 217, An Expensive Meal. Welcome back to the Dragon Pavilion, senior disciples. Chu Bo greeted Yuan, and the others the moment had arrived before looking at Yuan with admiration in his gaze. After all, this is his first time seeing someone with so many top beauties at once, and they were even prominent beauties within the sect. One can only imagine how many people would be envious of Yuan's situation right now. as he had a beauty sitting close to him in almost every direction. Have you decided on what you'd like to eat? Chubo asked them after his greeting. Yuan nodded and spoke without even a shred of hesitation within his voice. I want everything on the menu like last time. Everybody there beside Chubo looked at Yuan with surprised expressions on their faces, almost like they couldn't believe what they'd just heard. I understand. What about the senior fairies? What would you like to eat today? Chubo proceeded to ask the others, dumbfounding them even more. Yuan had already ordered everything that was on the menu. Why did he feel the need to ask them what they wanted to eat? It was almost as if he expected Yuan to eat all of the food he'd ordered by himself, which didn't sound very possible. Seeing these beauties staring at him with questionable gazes, Chubo responded with a somewhat stiff smile on his face. Senior apprentice brother Yuan has a big appetite, and he finished everything on the menu by himself the last time he was here, so I assumed that he'd be doing the same this time. What? Is that true? They turned to look at Yuan, who quickly nodded his head without any shame on his face. For more, visit lig/h/tnovelpub. /come heavens. Even my contribution points would be in danger if we come to the Dragon Pavilion more than once a month. Fei Yuyan spoke in a joking voice. Anyways, since that's the case, I'll have. Fei Yuyan ordered her food next, followed by Xian Wuhan and Minli. Thank you. I shall notify the cooks right now. Chubo bowed to them before leaving the place. Once they were alone again, Fei Yuyan turned to look at Yuan and said, not only did we win this Zither competition, I even improved my own Zither arts greatly, and this is all thanks to you, disciple Yuan. This isn't much, but I'd like to thank you properly. She then reached into her robes before retrieving her disciple identification badge. Let me see yours. Yuan didn't think much about it and retrieved his bronze disciple identification badge. Fei Yuyan placed her own directly before Yuan's badge, and a few seconds later, she transferred some of her own contribution points to him. This content is taken from li/tnovelp/ub. Com. You have received 1,000 contribution points from Fei Yuyan. Are you sure? You really don't need to. I didn't join the competition because I wanted a reward from you, Yuan said to her. It's okay really. It's the only thing I can do for you now, and I don't know how else I can express my gratitude, she responded. Yuan nodded and accepted the contribution points. I should check out the place where I can use my contribution later, and see what I can buy with my points, Yuan thought to himself as he put away his badge. A few moments later, Yuan suddenly retrieved the soul-ensnaring Zither and said, why don't I play a few songs while we wait for our food? That sounds great. Xian Wuhan immediately nodded. After taking a deep breath, Yuan began playing the Zither. However, he didn't play anything too extravagant. With that being said, even though he wasn't playing seriously, it was good enough to fool every disciple in the Dragon Pavilion, making them believe that it was Fei Yuyan who was playing. Meanwhile, the three beauties sitting around him stared at him without blinking, looking like they'd been mesmerized by his performance. The most up-to-date novels are published on lightnov/lp/b/. Sometime later, once the food began arriving at the table, Yuan stored the Zither and began eating his food, quickly shocking the ladies. How can so much food fit inside such a small body? They couldn't help but ask themselves. He's really talented in everything he does. Even eating sometime later, Yuan sighed in a satisfied manner. That was a great meal. I can't believe it. You really finished every single plate. Xian Wuhan mumbled in a dazed voice, and she continued. This makes me somewhat worried about that time you had dinner at my house. It was probably only enough to fill the gaps between your teeth. What? Disciple Yuan had dinner at your house? Fei Yuyan turned to look at her with wide eyes, surprised by her sudden reveal. That's right. We had dinner with my father there as well. Xian Wuhan said with a somewhat smug look on her face. Fei Yuyan was speechless. Visit lightnovelpub.com for a better experience. Anyway, hey, race my badge for the bill. This is my treat. Fei Yuyan then handed Chubo her badge. Does that include us? Even though you'd already said that you wouldn't treat us? Xian Wuhan asked her. Fei Yuyan glanced at her and said, I will gladly change my mind and make you pay for it if that's what I am understanding from your words. Xian Wuhan immediately turned around and began whistling. Although she has plenty of contribution points as well, she'd rather not use them if she didn't have to, as she was saving them up for a new cultivation technique. Thank you, Senior Apprentice Sister Fei, Chu Bo said as he subtracted the bill from her contribution points. 200 contribution points gone just like that. Fei Yuyan's eyebrows uncontrollably twitched after seeing the devastation Yuan had caused to her wallet. For an ordinary disciple, it would take months, even years to collect 200 contribution points, yet she'd spent the same amount for a single meal, not to mention the 1,000 contribution points she'd given to Yuan beforehand. Spending 1,200 contribution points in a single day, unless somebody went on a shopping spree in the exchange hall and bought every expensive treasure their gaze landed on, was an unthinkable act that would cause many disciples to physically cry. Author's note: check out my new novel Inferior Cultivation System if you like OPMC, Smart MC, Knowledgeable MC, Systems and face slapping. Don't worry, it won't affect my release rate for Cultivation Online or Dual Cultivation. Chapter 218 Heaven Severing Zither Arts. After leaving the Dragon Pavilion, Xian Wuhan and Fei Yuyan said their farewells to Yuan and Minli. I have to get back to training, so we'll find another time to chat with you, Yuan. It has been a wonderful experience these past few days, Xian Wuhan said to him. Now that the Zither competition is over, I also have to return to my regular training schedule. Once again, thank you for everything, Disciple Yuan. I'll see you later. Fei Yuyan bowed to him before leaving. What are you going to do now that the competition is over? Minli asked him as they walked back to their houses together. I'll spend some time on the technique ID gotten from the competition, and then I'll probably go to the place where I can spend some of my contribution points, said Yuan. The exchange hall? What are you trying to buy? I don't know yet. Do you want to come as well? Yuan asked her, as he was used to having her follow him around. And no, I have already spent enough time without a sword in my hands. Just like the other two, I must get back to my training, or else I'll get scolded by my family when I show no improvements, she sighed. I see. I'll see you around, Disciple Min, Yuan said to her before entering his building. After returning to his room, Yuan retrieved the divine grade treasure and the divine rank technique to inspect it. Follow current novels on lighten/ov/lpub/com. Frozen Jade Zither. Grade Divine Quality, Low. Mental Strength Requirement, 35,000. Soul Strength Requirement, 50,000. Description: can create music notes that will freeze one's heart and soul. Heaven Severing Zither Arts. A single music note can split the heavens in half. Xiao Hua. I know divine grade treasures cannot be used by those with insufficient cultivation, but does that apply to even instruments? I cannot imagine exploding to death because I pulled one of its strings, Yuan said out loud. No, Brother Yuan can play it, but you won't be able to utilize its full potential. Xiao Hua's voice resounded, and she continued. It'll just be like playing an ordinary zither without injecting your spiritual energy into it. This content is taken from lee//gitnovelp/ub. One can also wield a divine grade sword as a mortal, but without the cultivation to use it properly. The divine grade sword will only function as though it's an ordinary sword that's sharper and more durable than usual. I see. So I can still use this zither to play music normally, but I won't be able to produce special effects that can only be done when using spiritual energy. I think I get the gist of treasures in general. Yuan nodded as he pulled one of the strings on the frozen jade zither. A beautiful music note resounded in the room. It's pretty good sounding, but I still prefer the soul ensnaring zither, he mumbled after the noise calmed. After putting away the frozen jade zither, Yuan turned his attention to the divine rank technique Heaven Severing Zither Arts, and began reading through it. What an interesting technique. Yuan mumbled to himself after reading through the entire content once. After pondering for a few minutes, he returned to the first page to reread it once again. An hour later, a notification appeared before Yuan as he was absorbed in the technique. You have learned heaven-severing Zither arts. Visit Light Novel Pub. C/OM for the best novel reading experience. Heaven-severing Zither arts. Rank. Divine. Description. A single music note to sever the heavens. This technique was much simpler than I'd anticipated, and I managed to learn it in an hour. Guess I can give this technique to Fei Yuan tomorrow when I check out the exchange hall. With that in mind, Yuan logged off for the day and cultivated in the real world while waiting for Yuro's return. Welcome back, Yuro. Yuan said out loud after hearing her footsteps entering his room. I'm back, brother. And congratulations. I heard that you'd achieved first place in the Zither competition. Of course, I had already expected this outcome since it's a given that you would come first in a music competition, but still, congratulations. Yuro said to him in a cheerful voice. Thank you, Yuro. I wish I was there to witness it. But alas, school. Yuro sighed. Follow current novels on lightnov/lpub. C/OM. Don't worry, I'll play the Zither for you the next time we meet, said Yuan. It won't be the same since you're not competing against others. To be honest, it wasn't much of a competition since it was very different from what I'm used to. Yuan spoke with Yuro for about half an hour, telling her everything had experienced at the competition before Yuro left the room, and Yuan went to cultivate for the rest of the night. Once morning came and Yuro finished her morning routine, Yuan dived back into cultivation online, and left his house early in the morning to head to Fei Yuan's house, so he could give her the divine grade technique. However, halfway there, Yuan suddenly stopped walking, as Head realized that he no longer had the permission to enter the inner court, prohibiting him from even getting close to Fei Yuan's living quarters, much less meet her. Looks like he'll have to find another way to meet her, he thought to himself. For now, let's head to the exchange hall to see what kind of things they have there. Thus, Yuan turned around and began making his way towards the exchange hall after taking a moment to recall the map of the sect. The source of this content is li/Gaitno/ve/LP/UB. On his way to the exchange hall, Yuan passed the practice grounds, where hundreds of disciples were already awake in training. Of course, Minli was also there, practicing her sword techniques on the training puppets and being watched by the other disciples, their gazes filled with admiration for Minli. Yuan stopped to watch Minli practice for a few minutes before he continued walking again. Half an hour later, he stood before a tall and large pagoda that had 3 floors, and directly above its entrance was a grand sign that read Exchange Hall. Author's note. Check out my new novel Inferior Cultivation System if you like OP-MC, Smart MC, Knowledgeable MC systems and face slapping. Don't worry, it won't affect my release rate for cultivation online or dual cultivation. Chapter 219 Exchange Hall. So this is the Exchange Hall, huh? Yuan stared at the entrance with a pondering gaze. The Exchange Hall is where disciples go to spend their hard-earned contributions points. And unlike the profound Pavilion that only has cultivation techniques, the Exchange Hall has everything else from treasures to cultivation resources. Hey, why are you standing there and blocking the entrance? If you're not going to enter, scram. A tall and bulky disciple suddenly walked up from behind and forcefully bumped into Yuan's shoulder, snapping him out of his admiration for the building. Yuan frowned at this. He was standing many meters away from the entrance and was nowhere near it, so how could he be blocking the entrance? What? Do you have a problem? The bulky disciple that rudely bumped into Yuan stopped walking when he noticed the displeased look on Yuan's handsome face, feeling even more irritated at Yuan because of his own lacking appearance. This small commotion quickly attracted the disciples in that area. Look, someone had offended senior apprentice disciple Tiger, the Mad Tiger. What's this about? Why would an outer court disciple offend him? Does he not know who he's dealing with? I don't know, but only an idiot would dare to offend one of the top 10 disciples in the outer court. And this is Mad Tiger we're talking about. He's infamous for beating anyone that bothers him even slightly. The most up-to-date novels are published on li/Gitnovel World. C/OM. While the disciples there watched the commotion from a distance and laughed at Yuan's misfortune, The bulky disciple who is known as Mad Tiger approached Yuan in an aggressive manner. Disciple Tiger stopped once he stood directly before Yuan and stared at Yuan in the eyes. And he said in an overbearing voice, "Since you don't seem to recognize me, I'll assume that you're a new disciple and give you some slack. I am Wu Laohu, ranked 3rd in the outer court ranking. Now that you know my identity, you can either kiss the ground with your forehead and apologize for blocking my way or eat one of my fists. You decide." However, Yuan stood his ground despite the menacing aura coming from Disciple Tiger's large body that resembled a boulder, and he said in a calm voice, "I will choose neither. You were the one who bumped into me. If somebody has to apologize, it should be you." Heavens! He actually dared to defy Mad Tiger even after he had introduced himself. This outer court disciple is simply courting death. Looks like another victim will fall to the Mad Tiger today. Wu Laohu's body trembled after hearing Yuan's words that defied him, and veins began appearing all over his body. "Since you cannot pick, I shall pick one for you." Wu Laohu suddenly raised his fists with an explosive aura. However, just as Wu Laohu prepared to release his punch, a figure appeared behind him and gently tapped his shoulders, drifting Wu Laohu's attention to behind him. Elder Zhou. The source of this content is lightnovelwo/RLD/com. Wu Laohu's aggressive aura immediately disappeared when he saw the face of the person standing behind him, and his large figure suddenly appeared much smaller than just a moment ago. Just because you are ranked 3rd in the outer court ranking does not mean you can act however you please in this sect. This is also not the sparring stage but the exchange hall. If you continue causing a ruckus out here, I'll gladly be your opponent. Elder Zhou said to him. It was this disciple's mistake. It won't happen again, Elder Zhou. Wu Laohu bowed to Elder Zhou in a respectful manner, yet his eyes remained on Yuan's figure. This is all that little bastard's fault. If he didn't oppose me, I wouldn't have been scolded by Elder Zhou in front of so many people. How fucking unlucky of me. Wu Laohu cried inwardly, pushing all of the blame to Yuan. If you're here to purchase something, do your business and leave. Yes, Elder Zhou. Wu Laohu did not dare to linger around, and immediately went inside the exchange hall. The other disciples there followed and immediately returned to their own business. Elder Zhou then turned to look at Yuan, who was just calmly standing there. So this is Disciple Yuan, huh? I didn't get to see him last time at the carp leaping over Dragon's Gate Tower because of the guests, but he's somewhat different from what ID expected. He appears more humble than ID imagined. Elder Zhou thought to himself. New novel chapters are published on Light Novel World/com. You too. If you have business at the exchange hall, do it and leave. This is not a place for you to loiter around. Elder Zhou said to Yuan a moment later. Although he'd like to speak with Yuan more, he knew about Yuan's special existence, so he couldn't just start chatting with him as though they were friends, as that would immediately raise suspicions from the other disciples. Thank you, Elder, for stopping that disciple. Yuan bowed to him before entering the exchange hall. What a humble kid. But if I hadn't stopped that disciple just now, you would have sent him flying. Elder Zhou sighed inwardly as he watched Yuan's figure disappearing into the building. Once Head entered the exchange hall, Yuan went directly to the reception desk and asked the disciple behind the counter, "Hello, what do you sell here?" The disciple looked at Yuan as though he was looking at someone crazy, and he spoke a moment later. This is the exchange hall. Whether it be cultivation resources or treasures, you can have anything you want as long as you have enough contribution points. Anything I want. Yuan raised his eyebrows. However, had only come here to see what they had, even expecting some sort of display area like regular stores, so if he was asked what he wanted, he most likely wouldn't have an answer immediately. What do I need? Yuan began pondering. New novel chapters are published on /lightnovelu/o/RLD/. Come, if you don't know what you want yet, you can think about it elsewhere. Just don't stand here. The disciple warned Yuan. Okay. Yuan nodded and proceeded to stand in the corner of the large room, pondering if there was anything he needed from this place. Author's note. Check out my new novel Inferior Cultivation System if you like OP MC, Smart MC, Knowledgeable MC systems and face slapping. Don't worry, it won't affect my release rate for cultivation online or dual cultivation. Chapter 220 The most unreasonable person yet. Standing casually by the wall, Yuan pondered what he could use his contribution points on. I already have 2 soul weapons and a couple of treasures, so I don't need any more of these. I also have enough techniques. What about cultivation resources? But how do I know what I need? I am 1 level away from being a spirit master, but I am not in a rush. Though if they have something that can help me reach spirit master, I might as well get it. After pondering for a few minutes, Yuan decided to ask for some spirit warrior monster cores, so that he can consume them and hopefully reach the spirit master realm. However, just as Yuan prepared to return to the reception, a large frame suddenly stepped in front of him and blocked his path. Yuan raised his eyes slightly to look at Mad Tiger Wu Lao, staring at him with profound rage within his gaze. What do you want this time? I'm certain that I'm not blocking your path this time, Yuan said to him in a slightly mocking tone. You must think you're safe just because Elder Zhou stopped me from beating you, huh? Unless you plan on staying in the exchange hall for the rest of your life, you'll never escape from me. Wu Lao growled in a low voice. Why would I need to escape from you? If you have a problem with me, we can settle this with a sect elder's assistance. Yuan said to him. Oh, don't worry, we'll settle this all right, and we won't even need any assistance from a sect elder, said Wu Lao as he reached into his robes and pulled out his disciple identification token. Follow current novels on li/novelworld.com. I Wu Lao challenge you to a death match. Ding. You have received a special request. Outer Court disciple Wu Lao has challenged you to a death match. The other disciples there gasped in shock when they heard Wu Lao's words. Good Lord! Did the Mad Tiger just challenge someone to a death match? It has been over a year since he's last stepped onto that kind of stage. What's that Outer Court disciple going to do? He has every right to refuse Mad Tiger's challenge, but I doubt the Mad Tiger would accept that. Yuan looked at Wu Lao's disciple identification badge that was shoved directly in front of his face, and he spoke in a somewhat surprised voice. You're willing to challenge someone to a deathmatch because they blocked your path? You're probably the most unreasonable person I've come across to date. You think this is about that? This is about you making me lose face in front of so many people. This is about Elder Zhou scolding me. If you hadn't opposed me, none of that would have happened. Wu Lao said in a suppressed voice. Yet one could hear the anger in his voice very clearly. For more, visit Light Novel World. Yuan stared at Wu Lao in disbelief. He simply couldn't believe that someone so unreasonable would exist in this world. And he cannot imagine what goes through such a mind. After a moment of silence, Yuan shook his head and said, I'll have to refuse your challenge. You may be an unreasonable person, but there's no reason for me to go along with your farce. Why, you little? Wu Lao's large body trembled. Yet he didn't dare to act too rashly, especially since he was inside the exchange hall. If he fought Yuan in this place, he would definitely receive a harsh punishment. However, if he waited until Yuan left the premises, he would be able to beat Yuan up all he wanted, and he'll most likely only receive a slap on the wrist like all the other times. Good. If that's how you want to play, I'll play your damn game. Wu Lao said to Yuan before leaving the exchange hall with large strides and heavy steps. What a bothersome disciple. Elder Zhou sighed inwardly after watching this scene from somewhere inside the building. I should let the sect master know about this just in case anything really happens. After Wu Lao left the scene, an upset voice resounded in Yuan's head. Why didn't you just accept his challenge, young master? It wouldn't have required you to lift more than a single finger to kill that arrogant cultivator. If you don't want to kill him, I'll gladly turn him into ashes for you. Yuan shook his head and said, I simply cannot imagine killing someone over something so insignificant. Why are there such unreasonable and petty people in this world? It's almost like nobody had taught them about decency or respect. Anyway, I'm going to see if they have spirit warrior monster cores. I really hope that guy calms. Yuan said as he approached the receptionist once again. This content is taken from /lightnovellas/world. If Wu Laohu was a fellow player, he might have accepted the deathmatch because they can respawn with only slightly inconveniences, but since he doesn't know whether NPCs can respawn or not, he didn't want to take their lives so easily, as that would feel like he'd actually murdered someone. After reaching the desk, the disciple behind it looked at Yuan as though he was crazy, as most outer court disciples wouldn't even dare to look at Wu Laohu, much less oppose him. Do you have any spirit warrior monster cores? Yuan asked the disciple since he wasn't talking. Spirit warrior, monster cores? The ridicule on the disciple's face became even more apparent after hearing Yuan's words. After all, what kind of outer court disciple would be able to afford spirit warrior monster cores? Even if he could afford it, why would he need something so powerful at his level? Only core disciples would need something so powerful. You won't find any spirit warrior monster cores on the first floor. You need to head to the second floor, but only inner court disciples are allowed up there. The disciple answered Yuan a moment later. Inner court disciple, huh? Looks like I won't be able to obtain the monster cores for now. Yuan sighed. Author's note. Check out my new novel Inferior Cultivation System if you like OPMC, Smart MC, Knowledgeable MC systems and face slapping. Don't worry, it won't affect my release rate for Cultivation Online or Dual Cultivation. Chapter 221 Disciples from Other Sects. After Yuan left the exchange hall, because he learned that one cannot access the second floor unless they are inner court disciples, he suddenly recalled the silver medallion that Elder Shan had given him. If I remember correctly, the silver medallion will allow me to obtain cultivation resources at the Treasury Hall. Maybe they'll have some spirit warrior monster cores there. Yuan thought to himself. Where's the Treasury Hall, again? Yuan began pondering. A few moments later, once Yuan realized that the Treasury Hall was in the inner court, he sighed out loud. In the end, I still have to become an inner court disciple. What should I do now? Yuan looked around the sect with a pondering look, wondering where he should explore now that his adventure had ended much quicker than had expected. And just as he was thinking, Yuan suddenly heard the disciples around him speaking with excitement. Did you hear? Disciples from other sects are currently challenging the carp leaping over Dragon's Gate Tower. What? This is the first time outsiders are challenging the tower. No, I think this has happened before, but that was very long ago. Why are disciples from other sects challenging the tower so suddenly? Did something happen recently? You forgot already? One of our disciples had managed to clear all 100 floors, creating a pretty big commotion not long ago. Visit lightnovello/orld/com for a better experience. Oh, right, that did happen, and we still don't know that disciple's identity. However, what does that have anything to do with what's happening now? Who cares? Do you want to go watch or not? Of course. Let's go. Many disciples from around the sect could be seen approaching the same direction at this moment, towards the carp leaping of Dragon's Gate Tower to witness the special event. Yuan's interest was immediately piqued after listening to the disciples, mostly by the disciples from the other sects, and he began following the other disciples to the scene. Sometime later, Yuan arrived at the carp leaping of Dragon's Gate Tower, where hundreds of other disciples, and even sect elders were already present. Wow, there's a lot of people here, Yuan thought to himself as he stood towards the end of the crowd, so he couldn't really see the disciples from the other sections. However, he was able to see the golden lights emitted by the tower, and whoever was challenging the tower at this moment was on the 40th floor. Heavens! Who's currently inside the tower? One of the newcomers there decided to ask. Visit/lightnovelworld.com for a better experience. It's Ao Zongqing that's inside right now. It took him less than an hour to reach 40 floors. Someone there responded. What? The number one genius from the Iron Courage Pavilion. Why's he challenging the tower? Nobody really knows the details, but rumors say it's because of a gamble between the Dragon Essence Temple and their sect. Meanwhile, standing in the front, there were 7 disciples and 4 sect masters from their respective sections. Of course, Long Yijuan and some of the high-ranking sect elders were there as well. It would be nice if we could see what's happening inside, but alas. Yuan wanted to watch the disciples from the other sects challenge the tower, but then he remembered how long it took Minli to finish, which quickly made him lose interest, as he wasn't willing to stand around for a whole week until they all finish. Thus, after standing around for a couple of minutes, Yuan decided to leave the place and return to his own room. However, right as he turned around and walked a few steps, Elder Xian's voice resounded in his head. Disciple Yuan, go to the inner court and find Elder Shan. She has a few things to give you and also something to tell you. If you need help entering the inner court, show the elder your gold disciple identification badge. Yuan nodded and began making his way towards the inner court whilst Elder Xian remained at the tower for the event. Follow current novels on lightnovel.ld. Comey didn't know I could use my second identification badge like this. Now I can visit the Treasury Hall as well. Yuan thought to himself. Many minutes later, Yuan arrived at the entrance to the inner court. What do you want, outer court disciple? Do you have business in the inner court? The elder there asked Yuan. Yes. Here is my identification badge. Yuan responded as he showed the elder his gold identification badge. This. The sect elder was immediately shocked to see the gold identification token, and he turned to look at Yuan with wide eyes filled with disbelief and respect. I understand. If you don't mind me asking, what business do you have in the inner court? The elder asked him after handing the badge back to him. I would like to go to the Treasury Hall, Yuan answered, purposefully not mentioning Elder Shan. Thank you. You may enter now. The sect elder then opened the gates for him, allowing Yuan to enter the inner court with relatively no effort. Yuan was slightly dumbfounded by how easy it was to enter the inner court. Visit lig/tnov/world.com for a better experience. This gold identification badge is very convenient. Yuan thought to himself as he stored the badge inside the spatial ring. If I recall correctly, Elder Shan said that I could find her at the Blossom Peak. Yuan closed his eyes and opened the Sects map inside his head to look for a Blossom Peak. Once had located Blossom Peak, Yuan began making his way towards Elder Shan's place, even passing the Treasury Hall on the way there. About half an hour later, Yuan arrived at this vast and spacious hill with a single large building sitting in the middle and surrounded by a flower field. And even though he was still very far away from Elder Shan's building, he could see Elder Shan's figure and a couple of other figures near a blossom tree right beside the house, looking like they were in a lecture or something. Seeing this, Yuan began walking towards them with a nonchalant look on his face. Author's note. Check out my new novel Inferior Cultivation System if you like OPMC, Smart MC, Knowledgeable MC, Systems and Face Slapping. Don't worry, it won't affect my release rate for Cultivation Online or Dual Cultivation. Chapter 222 Elder Shan's Reward. As Yuan approached Elder Shan and the other two figures, he noticed these four-legged objects sitting on the ground in front of them, and they were pretty large as well. What are those things? They look like pots, and there is even smoke coming from them. Yuan thought to himself as he got closer and closer to them. Senior Shan. Yuan called out to her once he was close enough. Elder Shan turned around with raised eyebrows, wondering who would dare to enter her territory without making an appointment, as she wasn't expecting any visitors today. However, when she saw Yuan's innocent face, a smile immediately appeared on her face, and she said, Disciple Yuan, you've arrived much quicker than I'd anticipated. I wasn't expecting to see you until tomorrow, after all. The other two figures also turned to look at Yuan after they saw Elder Shan's reaction, acting like she was delighted to see him or something. An outer court disciple? These two disciples raised their eyebrows after seeing Yuan's uniform, as they have never seen an outer court disciple appearing in this sacred place before. Hello, Senior Shan. I hope I'm not bothering you, but Senior Xian told me to come here, Yuan said to her. Don't worry, you won't bother me even if you tried. Elder Shan laughed gracefully before she pointed to the two dumbfounded figures sitting not far away from her. Follow current novels on lightnovel.pub.com. Let me introduce you to my disciples. Elder Shan's disciples then stood up and introduced themselves despite feeling that Yuan should have been the first one to introduce himself since they were more senior. Tian, inner court disciple. Bei, core disciple. They gave a simple and direct introduction. Yuan nodded and said, "Hello, I am Yuan." After their brief introduction, Elder Shan turned to look at her disciples and said, "Anyway, the two of you can continue concocting pills. I'll be right back. Follow me inside," Elder Shan said to him before entering the building. Yuan nodded and followed her. Visit Light Novel Pub. Com for a better experience. Once they were inside, Elder Shan pointed to the couch and said, "Go ahead. Take a seat." After Yuan sat down on the couch, Elder Shan also took a seat, even deciding to sit directly beside him. "First and foremost, allow me to congratulate you again for getting first place in the Zither competition, exceeding my expectations," Elder Shan said to him with a somewhat serious look on her face, and she continued, "Even though you've already received a reward from the competition, the Dragon Essence Temple has decided to also reward you for your contribution since your results greatly increased our reputation. Let me see your identification badge." Yuan nodded and showed her his bronze identification badge. "You have received 10,000 contribution points from Shan. 10,000 contribution points," Yuan mumbled in a surprised voice. 10,000 contribution points may be a lot, but compared to the next reward, it's almost worthless, Elder Shan said with a smile on her face. "There are more rewards?" Yuan raised his eyebrows. "This content is taken from Light Novel Pub." Elder Shan nodded and said, "The sect master has decided to let you go to the Dragon's Peak." "Dragon's Peak? What's that?" Yuan asked. "It's one of the most sacred places in the Dragon Essence Temple beside the Dragon Temple. After all, it used to be our ancestors' peak. What's so special about this place?" Yuan continued to ask. "Well, I have only been there once, but the spiritual energy there is extremely dense for some reason, which will greatly boost your cultivation speed. Furthermore, legend has it that the ancestor had hidden a treasure in that place before he disappeared. But nobody has been able to find it despite looking through every nook and cranny." "I see. One more thing. We want you to participate in the Inner Court Disciple examination next week and become an Inner Court Disciple," said Elder Shan after a moment of silence. Inner Court Disciple? I thought we can only do that once we've spent enough time as an Outer Court Disciple." "Indeed, but there are always special occasions. As long as you have the sect master's permission, a disciple can partake in the inner court, even core disciple examination regardless of their time in the sect. Visit Light Novel Pub. Com for a better experience." After a moment of silence, Yuan nodded. "Okay. If the sect master wants me to become an inner court disciple, I'll participate in the examination." "Thank you, Disciple Yuan. Once you become an inner court disciple, you'll be able to enter the Dragon's Peak. After Dragon's Peak will be the start of the Mystic Realm, so you'll be quite busy. It'll be a great experience," Yuan said with a smile. "Do you have anything else for me?" he then asked. "No, that's all for now," Elder Shan said. "Then I won't linger around and disturb your lecture with your disciples. Don't worry about it. I am only going through previous lessons today. I'll see you later, Senior Shan," Yuan said as he stood up. "Wait a second. Follow current novels on Light Novel Pub." Elder Shan suddenly grabbed his robes. Just as Yuan turned around, Elder Shan stood up and moved with lightning-quick speed, giving him a gentle kiss on the forehead. "Elder Shan?" Yuan stared at her with a dumbfounded look on his face. "That was my reward to you. I'll give you something even more intense if you manage to achieve first place for the Mystic Realm as well." Elder Shan winked at him with a smile on her beautiful face. Yuan was speechless and didn't know how he should respond to such words. Therefore, he only nodded at her words in a dazed manner. Meanwhile, Xiaohua nearly left the necklace on an impulse after seeing Elder Shan's quick and sly action, but she had somehow managed to resist herself and remained inside the necklace. Sometime later, Yuan left Elder Shan's house, but right as he closed the door, he could hear a painful cry suddenly coming from Elder Shan. Bonk. 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 New novel chapters are published on Light Novel Pub. Are you okay? Yuan asked her, who was almost in tears from the pain. Why yes, I am, Elder Shan said with a stiff smile on her face. Author's note. Check out my new novel Inferior Cultivation System if you like OP MC, Smart MC, Knowledgeable MC systems and face slapping. Don't worry, it won't affect my release rate for cultivation online, or dual cultivation. Chapter 223 I did not steal anything. Goodbye, fellow disciples, Yuan said to Elder Shan's disciples before leaving the premises. The two disciples watched as Yuan's figure disappeared into the distance, and they mumbled. Just who is that outer court disciple? What relationship does he have with our master? Tian asked out loud. I have never seen him before, so I don't know. But if he can come to this place as an outer court disciple, then there must be something special about him. Maybe he's from a powerful family, said Bei Bei the core disciple. A couple of minutes later, once the pain dealt by Xiaohua had finally disappeared, Elder Shan came back outside and returned to their lectures. When her disciples saw this, they wondered if she would tell them about that mysterious outer court disciple later, but alas, Elder Shan never mentioned Yuan even after their lecture ended. After leaving Elder Shan's place, Yuan began making his way towards the Treasury Hall, but then he recalled something that made him turn around and walk in another direction. Sometime later, Yuan arrived at a familiar-looking place, Fei Yuyan's living quarters. Yuan approached the doorstep and knocked on her door. After waiting for a couple of moments without any answer, Yuan knocked on the door again, and he repeated this for a few minutes. Updated from Light Novel Pub. Is she not home? Yuan mumbled. Yuan decided to wait a few more minutes just in case Fei Yuyan was busy. Once he was certain that Fei Yuyan was absent, Yuan decided to leave for now and head to the Treasury Hall. I'll just come back here at another time since I can enter the inner court without any problems now. After leaving Fei Yuyan's living quarters, Yuan finally arrived at the Treasury Hall half an hour later. And although it resembled the Exchange Hall, there was only a single floor here. Upon entering the building, Yuan went straight to the front desk where a sect elder was in charge. The sect elder turned to look at Yuan with raised eyebrows after seeing his outer court uniform. What's an outer court disciple like you doing here? Only inner court disciples are allowed to use this place, you know, the sect elder said to him. Hearing the sect elder's question, Yuan retrieved his spatial ring and took out the silver medallion that Elder Shan had given to him before showing it to the sect elder behind the desk. The source of this content is Light Novel Pub. Can I use this place if I have this? Yuan asked him in a calm voice. What's that? The sect elder did not immediately recognize the silver medallion at first because it was so rare. However, once he picked it up and inspected it, his eyes widened with shock, and he exclaimed, the silver fortune medallion. Where do you get this? The sect elder exclaimed in a startled voice, sounding as though he had just witnessed his ancestors crawling out of their graves. It was given to me? Yuan said. Nonsense. There's no way an outer court disciple would have something like this. You either stole it or found it by accident. I am confiscating this now, the elder said with a frown on his face as he tossed the silver fortune medallion inside his pocket. What? Yuan exclaimed in a surprised manner, and he spoke. How could you accuse me of stealing it when you have no proof? It was given to me. You can't just take it from me. Do I need any proof besides you being an outer court disciple? What does my disciple status have anything to do with this? Yuan asked with a frown. Then let me ask you this. What kind of outer court disciple would have the silver fortune medallion that allows one to retrieve as many treasures as they want from the Treasury Hall? Not even core disciples would be given such a thing, let alone an outer court disciple. The sect elder responded. After all, if the sect were to give an outer court disciple the silver fortune medallion that allows them near full access to the Treasury Hall, they might as well make him a high-ranking sect elder. This content is taken from Light Novel Pub. But it is a fact that I was given that medallion. Please give it back to me. Yuan extended his hand with a stern look on his face. The audacity. I am already saving you some face by not giving you a beating for stealing such a precious thing. If you don't scram, he'll not only discipline you but also report you to the sect master." The sect elder raised his voice, causing the other people there to notice them. "Stealing? Did that outer court disciple steal something from the treasury hall? Does he have a death wish? What kind of idiot would try to steal from the sect?" The inner court disciples there shook their heads before returning to their own business, as they couldn't care less about an outer court disciple who was about to be punished. "Well, do you admit to stealing the silver fortune medallion or not?" The sect elder then said, urging Yuan to admit his faults. "I did not steal anything." However, Yuan did not back down and refused to admit to something he didn't do. Seeing this, the sect elder trembled in anger, and he suddenly pulled his arms back before releasing it, propelling his palms at Yuan with a powerful force. For more, visit Light Novel Pub. "Come, get out of here," the sect elder said as he attacked Yuan, trying to kick him outside with force. Yuan's eyes widened with surprise when the sect elder attacked him out of nowhere. Though since the sect elder was only a 6th-level spirit warrior, Yuan did not feel intimidated or pressured. Just as the sect elder's palms reached Yuan's chest, Yuan activated his movement technique and dodged the strike flawlessly. The sect elder's eyes widened with surprise when Yuan dodged his surprise attack, and he could feel many surprised gazes directed at him, which caused his face to flush with redness. "Why, you little brat!" The sect elder growled in a low voice, feeling like Yuan had slapped him in the face by dodging his strike in front of so many people. Chapter 224 Treasury Hall. What's going on? Why did the sect elder suddenly attack that outer court disciple? The inner court disciples there were greatly shocked by this sudden incident, as they have never seen such a forceful and aggressive reaction in the treasury hall before. Whatever that disciple did, he's done for. Nobody offends a sect elder from the treasury hall and gets away with it. It's been a long time since someone has caused trouble in the treasury hall. I cannot wait to see how that outer court disciple gets punished. Meanwhile, Yuan turned to look at the sect elder with a frown on his face. That was dangerous. How could you suddenly attack a disciple without any reason as a sect elder? Without a reason? I have plenty of reasons to discipline you. You not only stole the silver fortune medallion, but you also dared to talk back to a sect elder. You assumed that I'd stolen it without any evidence, and then you attacked me when I asked for you to return it to me. That's unreasonable. Shut your damn mouth, you freaking liar. How could a disciple like you exist in the righteous dragon essence temple? You don't belong here. Not only will I discipline you, but I will also make sure you are no longer a disciple after today. I can say the same thing to you. You want to discipline me? Go ahead and try. Yuan stood his ground, not willing to be bullied by the sect elder. Not only the disciples but even the sect elders are unreasonable. This really makes me question some things. Yuan sighed inwardly. The source of this content is Light Novel Pub. Calm hearing Yuan's provoking words, the sect elder jumped over the desk and approached Yuan while surrounded by an aggressive aura. If I don't punish you today, I do not deserve to be a sect elder. The sect elder spoke as he approached Yuan. What the heck is going on here, Elder Gu? I stepped away for a few minutes and trusted you with the treasury hall, and this is how you repay me? By creating a commotion with an outer court disciple inside the treasury hall? A sighing voice suddenly resounded, causing everybody there to look at the entrance, where a tall middle-aged man stood. Elder Bei. Elder Gu looked at Elder Bei with a perplexed look on his face. You've misunderstood the situation, Elder Bei. I am merely disciplining this disciple who not only dared to steal a precious item from the sect, but also dared to lie in front of a sect elder. Elder Bei raised his eyebrows and he turned to look at Yuan, who was standing there still with an unpleasant look on his face. What did he steal? Elder Bei asked as he approached them. This, the silver fortune medallion. Elder Gu quickly showed him the silver medallion in his hands. Tits. Elder Bei's eyes widened with shock when he saw the silver fortune medallion. The source of this content is Light Novel Pub. He then turned to look at Yuan in a stiff motion before asking him, "Why, young disciple, can you tell me your name?" "Disciple Yuan," he responded. "Disciple Yuan. Shit. He's the disciple Grand Elder Shan warned me about. This fucking idiot Elder Gu actually offended the one person we're not supposed to offend when I went to get some food." Elder Bei immediately began sweating after realizing the situation. While Elder Shan had told Elder Bei about Yuan and the Silver Fortune Medallion because he was the manager at this place, Elder Shan didn't tell anyone else because he didn't want too many people knowing about Yuan's existence to keep the risks of revealing his identity low. Furthermore, Elder Gu was only an assistant working in this place temporarily, so he was definitely not briefed about Yuan. But alas, little did Elder Shan and Elder Bei expect that Yuan would arrive at the Treasury Hall at the worst time. When Elder Bei went out to get some food, "Elder Bei." Elder Gu called out to him when he stood there in silence for many moments. Elder Bei rubbed his eyes and released a long sigh. After sighing, he turned to look at the other disciples there and said, "The Treasury Hall is closed for today. Everybody get out." Follow current novels on Light Novel Pub. Although Elder Bei tried his best to remain calm, his voice turned out quite angry sounding, causing the inner court disciples there to sweat. The disciples began leaving the building, and a couple of moments later, only Elder Gu, a few other sect elders working there, and Yuan remained. Once the place was dead silent, Elder Bei extended his hand at Elder Gu and spoke again. "Give me the Silver Fortune Medallion." Elder Gu did not think twice and handed the silver medallion to Elder Bei. Once the medallion was in his hands, Elder Bei turned to look at Yuan before showing him the Silver Fortune Medallion on his palm, almost like he was offering it to Yuan, shocking everybody there. "I deeply apologize for the misunderstanding and inconvenience you've experienced at the Treasury Hall today. I am the only one here who was informed by Elder Shan regarding your situation, so please excuse the others for their ignorance." Elder Bei lowered his head as he apologized to Yuan, shocking the others even more. Yuan then said, "I won't blame anyone for being ignorant. However, being ignorant and being unreasonable are two different things. That sect elder immediately assumed that I'd stolen this medallion without any evidence when I showed it to him, even striking me out of the blue when I asked for him to return it. That's simply inexcusable." "What? Is this true? He attacked you?" Elder Bei looked at Yuan with wide eyes. Yuan nodded with a serious look on his face. Visit Light Novel Pub. Calm for a better experience. After a moment of silence, Elder Bei turned to look at Elder Gu and said, "Since when do we, sect elders, attack disciples over suspicions and without any evidence that they'd committed a crime? Even if he did, when did that become our responsibility to discipline disciples? The disciplinary squad exists for a reason. I will listen to the whole story and deal with you later. Go wait in my room until I am done here." "Why, yes." Elder Gu nodded with a dazed look on his face, as he still couldn't comprehend the situation. Why did Elder Bei protect that outer court disciple? Why was he scolded? It didn't make sense. Once Elder Gu left the scene, Elder Bei returned to Yuan and said, "Don't worry, I will handle this properly later, so let's stop thinking about this for now. Why did you come to the Treasury Hall today? Are you looking for some treasure? Tell me what you need and I'll see if we have it." Seeing how Elder Bei wanted to drop the subject, Yuan had no reason to continue this drama and said, "I am here to see if I can get some Spirit Warrior monster cores." "Spirit Warrior monster cores?" Elder Bei raised his eyebrows at this unexpected answer. "Do you have a specific type of monster core in mind?" Yuan shook his head and replied, "No, any kind of monster core will do." Chapter 225. I'll take them all. "Any kind, huh?" Elder Bei went behind the desk and took out a small book that listed all of the monster cores they had in the Treasury Hall. While they have plenty of Spirit Apprentice monster cores, they don't have many monster cores at the Spirit Warrior level since it's not often sought after by the disciples. "How many do you need? And what level do you prefer for the Spirit Warrior monster cores?" Yuan scratched his head and said, "Honestly, I don't know how many I need. but I'd like the highest level monster core you have. The highest level? Elder Bei looked at him with wide eyes. In his eyes, Yuan was only at the 9th level spirit apprentice realm. Why would he need monster cores that were far above his own level? However, since the Treasury Hall has wronged Yuan, Elder Bei didn't ask him any questions and looked at the monster core book. A few moments later he said, the highest level spirit warrior monster core we have right now is at the 8th level, and we only have one of them. We also have one 6th level spirit warrior monster core. Then we have about a dozen spirit warrior monster cores below the 3rd level. I'll take them all, Yuan said without any hesitation. All of them. Elder Bei looked at Yuan with a gawking expression on his face, wondering if this is Yuan's method of revenge because they'd treated him wrongly. However, since Yuan had the Silver Fortune Medallion, the Treasury Hall was obligated to give Yuan whatever he wanted as long as it wasn't unreasonable. While the monster cores are worth a couple of hundred contribution points, it wasn't so much that it would instantly bankrupt the Treasury Hall. For more, visit Light Novel Pub. After a moment of silence, Elder Bei nodded with a forced smile on his face. I understand. Please give me a minute to prepare your monster cores. Yuan nodded and proceeded to wait whilst the other sect elders watched him with dazed expressions. A couple of minutes later, Elder Bei returned to the room with a large box. Here are your monster cores. Elder Bei placed the box on the counter. Yuan nodded and then said, thank you. How many contribution points do I have to pay for it? Pay? Elder Bei looked at him with raised eyebrows before saying, you don't have to pay anything. It's all for free. Yuan looked at him with wide eyes and mumbled, free? In his mind, the Silver Fortune Medallion only gave him access to the Treasury Hall, and perhaps some low-tier treasures for free, but he didn't expect that it would allow him to obtain so many Spirit Warrior monster cores for free, as that sounded too good to be true in a place where most disciples are expected to earn their resources. I'll feel bad if I accept so many resources for free. How about I purchase them at a discounted rate instead? Yuan suddenly suggested. For more, visit Light Novel Pub. Since he already has so many contribution points, it would be a waste if he didn't use them because he would get everything for free. After pondering for a moment, Elder Bei nodded. Since you insist on paying for them, I'll give you a 50% discount for the monster cores. It'll be 450 contribution points. Are you okay with this? Yuan nodded and handed Elder Bei his disciple identification badge without hesitation. A few moments later, Elder Bei handed Yuan's identification badge back to him and said, thank you for your business. Yuan accepted his badge and the monster cores, tossing them into his spatial ring afterward. Once he had everything he needed, Yuan left the Treasury Hall with a calm look on his face, and made his way back to his own living quarters. Meanwhile, Elder Bei turned to look at the other sect elders and said, what happened here today? You will act as though it never happened, or you can ignore what I said and risk your status as a sect elder. That's all I have to say. After his brief words that shocked the other sect elders, Elder Bei returned to his room in the Treasury Hall where Elder Gu was waiting. Elder Bei, what was that all about? Why did you protect that outer court disciple? Elder Gu immediately began asking for an explanation. The most up-to-date novels are published on Light Novel Pub. In response to Elder Gus' words, Elder Bei raised his hands and swung them directly across Elder Gus' face, slapping him soundly. Why you? Elder Gu looked at Elder Bei with disbelief in his eyes and a burning sensation on his cheeks, but he didn't dare to retaliate since he was far weaker than Elder Bei, who was at the Spirit Master realm. Follow me, Elder Bei said and turned around, walking outside. Although he was reluctant, Elder Gu couldn't oppose Elder Bei's commands and followed him outside. Once they were outside alongside the other sect elders, Elder Bei asked out loud, allow me to ask all of you this. What did I tell all of you at the beginning of this month? One of the sect elders there immediately raised his hand and said, that if a disciple with the Silver Fortune Medallion appears, we are to immediately notify you, Elder Bei. Good. So I wasn't just dreaming about telling you. Elder Bei then turned to look at Elder Gu and asked them, then what happened to you, Elder Gu? Did you forget? Or did you purposefully disobey my order? Updated from Light Novel Pub. Calm, I had forgotten, Elder Bay. Elder Gu quickly responded. I see, so you'd forgotten, huh? Then let's hope this incident will help you remember things better in the future. Elder Bay said, and he continued after taking a deep breath. Regardless of how the entire situation went down, even if I want to, I cannot protect you since you decided to attack that disciple. However, I do not have the authority to punish you since I am only the manager of this place, so I will let someone with more authority and status than myself handle you. Elder Gu, you are temporarily relieved of your duties in the Treasury Hall, and I will be letting Grand Elder Shan know about the situation, so he can deal with you later. Grand Elder Shan. Elder Gu exclaimed in a shocked voice. Why would a Grand Elder be involved in such a minor incident? Chapter 226 You cannot do this to me. Why do you have to involve Grand Elder Shan? This is only a small incident. There's no need to bother a Grand Elder because of an outer court disciple. That's an exaggeration, Elder Bay. Elder Gu immediately began sweating after hearing that Grand Elder Shan might be involved in this mess. Elder Bay shook his head before sighing. You really are clueless, aren't you, Elder Gu? Just an outer court disciple? Do you really think an ordinary outer court disciple will be given the Silver Fortune Medallion? When was the last time an outer court disciple had such a priceless object in their pockets? Think about it before you speak. Elder Gu immediately turned speechless. After listening to Elder Bai's words, Head finally came to that realization, but alas, it was too late for him to regret it, as there was no medicine for regret in this world. Get out of my sight before I lose my patience. Elder Bai said a few seconds later. Elder Gu nodded in a dispirited manner before walking out of the Treasury Hall and returning to his living quarters, where he pondered what he went wrong and what he could have done to prevent this disaster that had fallen upon him. Meanwhile, Elder Bai returned to his room and retrieved a communication jade slip. After activating it with his spiritual energy, Elder Bai spoke to it. Grand Elder Shan, this is Elder Bai from the Treasury Hall. I apologize for bothering you, but this is regarding Disciple Yuan that you'd warned me about. Elder Bai proceeded to explain the situation to Grand Elder Shan, telling him about Elder Gus' behavior and how Head treated Yuan. On the other side of the sect at the carp leaping over Dragon's Gate, Elder Shan had been watching the disciples from the other sect challenge the tower immediately frowned after receiving Elder Bai's notice. Sect Master, I'll have to excuse myself for a bit. Elder Shan said to him, who was also there with him. Updated from Light Novel Pub. Kamechem? What happened? Long Ijuan raised his eyebrows after seeing Elder Shan's angry face. Well, Elder Shan proceeded to give a brief explanation of the situation about what had occurred at the Treasury Hall with Yuan and Elder Gu. Elder Gu did what? Long Ijuan exclaimed in a shocked voice after hearing the news, causing the other people there to turn and look at him with raised eyebrows, wondering what this was about. Go deal with him quickly. If not for my current situation, I would personally see him myself. Long Ijuan said in an angry voice. How could a sect elder treat Yuan in such a manner after his massive contribution to the sect? Granted that nobody in the sect knows about Yuan participating in the sect, because Long Ijuan had personally made it so that it wouldn't spread. There are no excuses for a sect elder to be acting like the way Elder Gu had towards any disciple. A few moments later, Elder Shan left the scene and headed towards the inner court and the Treasury Hall. Greetings, Grand Elder. The sect elders inside the Treasury Hall greeted Elder Shan the moment he stepped into their building, feeling their backs soaked in cold sweats, as they didn't expect Elder Shan to appear so quickly. Visit Light Novel Pub. Com for the best novel reading experience. Tell me everything that happened. Elder Shan spoke in a calm yet commanding voice. One by one, the sect elders gave their side of the story and what they saw during the incident. I understand. Thank you. After getting all of the sect elders' statements, Elder Shan made his way to Elder Gus' living quarters and knocked on the door in a somewhat aggressive manner. A few moments later, Elder Gu opened the door and appeared before Elder Shan, greeting Elder Shan with a pale complexion and his back soaked in sweat. Do you know why I am here? Elder Shan asked him with narrowed eyes. I do. Elder Gu nodded in a timid manner. Before I say anything, I'll give you an opportunity to explain yourself and tell me your side of the story, said Elder Shan. Thank you, Grand Elder. This content is taken from Light Novel Pub. Elder Gu proceeded to explain the situation to him, and how he thought Yuan had stolen the Silver Fortune medallion, because it wasn't possible for an outer court disciple to have such a thing. However, Elder Gu also subtly blamed Yuan for being aggressive and disrespectful to him. Hence why he lost his temper and tried to force him out of the Treasury Hall. Elder Xian's eyebrows twitched when Elder Gu called Yuan disrespectful and aggressive. Although he didn't say anything, Elder Xian didn't believe even for a second that Yuan, who was as innocent as a child, would behave in such a manner without any reason. A few minutes later, once Elder Gu finished explaining himself, Elder Xian spoke in a low but grim voice. You claimed that disciple Yuan had disrespected you and even provoked you to attack him, but I cannot imagine someone like him doing such a thing. Although I may not have known him for long, I have known him long enough to know what kind of person he is. As for the Silver Fortune medallion, Elder Bei had already warned everyone in the building about it. So you can only blame yourself for forgetting about it. Elder Gu, your behavior today has greatly disappointed the sect master and me. Therefore, as of this moment, you are no longer a disciple of the Dragon Essence Temple. What? You're going to kick me out of the sect over a small mistake? Because of a mere outer court disciple? This isn't fair at all, and totally not justified. It's not like I'd broken any sect rules either. You cannot do this to me, Grand Elder. Elder Gu couldn't believe his ears. However, Elder Xian shook his head and said, You have no idea who that outer court disciple is, nor do you have any idea how much the sect values his presence. If you'd chased him out of the sect, even 1,000,000 of your lives would not be able to compensate for such a loss. Chapter 227, Nearly lost her mind from shock. Even 1,000,000 of my lives cannot compare to that outer court disciple's. Elder Gu stared at Elder Xian with a dazed look on his face, his gaze filled with disbelief. Elder Xian shook his head and said, You're extremely lucky that I was the one who came here, since the sect master wanted to personally come here after hearing what you'd done. Fortunately for you, he's currently busy with our guests. If you understand what I'm saying, I recommend you leave this sect before the guests leave, and the sect master comes to find you. Elder Gu immediately began sweating again. The sect master wanted to see him? Because had offended a mere outer court disciple? Heavens! He better get as far away from the Dragon Essence Temple, or else the sect master might skin him alive. If you don't have anything else to say, hand over your disciple identification badge. Elder Xian said as he showed his palms to Elder Gu. After a deep sigh, Elder Gu handed over his disciple identification badge. You have 3 days to pack everything and leave the sect's premises. Elder Xian said to him before turning around and walking away, returning to the Long Yijin's side. As for Elder Gu, since he didn't have much to pack, he left the Dragon Essence Temple without speaking to anyone, as he was too embarrassed by his own situation to say anything. Sect Master, everything has been dealt with. After returning to Long Yijin's side, Elder Xian showed him Elder Gus's disciple identification badge. Humph. You're too kind, Elder Xian. If it was me, I'd given him a good beating before I kicked him out. Long Yuan coldly sneered before focusing on the tower again. New novel chapters are published on Light Novel Pub. Meanwhile, inside his own room, Yuan retrieved the monster cores and laid them on the table. After counting them, he had 1/8 and 6th level Spirit Warrior Monster Core, 4 3rd level, 4 4th level, and 8 1st level Spirit Warrior Monster Cores. 18 Monster Cores, huh? I wonder if this will be enough for me to break through to the Spirit Master realm. Yuan thought to himself. He needed approximately 12 billion Qi experience in order to break through to Spirit Master, but he wasn't sure if these monster cores would be enough. Young Master, what do you plan on doing with so many monster cores? If you're trying to reach the Spirit Master realm, I don't think you'll be able to with that little amount of monster cores, and it'll take you months to absorb them. Feng Yuxiang said to him. completely unaware of Yuan's heaven-defying physique. You think so too, Feng Feng? If only I had a Spirit Master Monster Core, he sighed. I have a Spirit Grandmaster Monster Core, but that's too much for you to handle, young master. Furthermore, it's not an ordinary monster core, so it'll be even more difficult to absorb. If you're not careful with it, the monster core could even attack you as you absorb it, destroying your cultivation base. Destroy my cultivation? Yuan could feel his back beginning to sweat after hearing Feng Yuxiang's words. He should be more careful with consuming monster cores in the future. What about these, Feng Feng? Will these monster cores give me any issues? Yuan asked her a moment later. Follow current novels on Light Novel Pub. I don't think they will. Feng Yuxiang said after examining the monster cores with her spiritual sense. Okay, then I will absorb them, Yuan said in a casual manner. Wait a second, young master. You're going to absorb them now? Even if you are at the peak of the Spirit Warrior realm, it'll take you at least a week to absorb the 8th level Spirit Warrior Monster Core, and it won't even be worth the time since you'll only get a very small fraction of its spiritual energy. Feng Yuxiang said to him. After all, most people absorb monster cores that are above their own level. It's okay, Feng Feng. It won't take me a week, and even if it doesn't help me break through, it'll definitely bring me closer to Spirit Master. After saying those words, Yuan picked up the low-level monster cores first, and began tossing them into his mouth one by one like candies. Heaven Refining Physique activated. 38,654,154 chi has been refined from the Ruby Cavern Toad's monster core. 31,544,851 chi has been refined from the Dark Deer's monster core. This content is taken from Light Novel Pub. 32,441,778 chi has been refined. 70,828,182 chi has been refined. 155,991,394 chi has been refined. When Feng Yuxiang saw this, she nearly lost her mind from shock, and she quickly left his body and appeared in the room. What are you doing, young master? You can't eat monster cores. Hurry and spit it out. Feng Yuxiang spoke in a panicked voice, even sticking her fingers into Yuan's mouth to try and search for the monster cores, almost like a mother trying to dig out something her baby wasn't supposed to put into their mouth. But alas, the monster cores had already melted the moment it touched his tongue. Calm down, Phoenix. Xiaohua also came out of her necklace and pulled Feng Yuxiang away from Yuan. But the young master swallowed some monster cores. The last time someone did that, he exploded into a bloody mess. Feng Yuxiang said, as she could still remember that one time thousands of years ago when she'd witnessed someone swallowing monster cores and the consequences of such actions. Brother Yuan is okay. He has a special physique that allows him to consume monster cores without any problems. See, he's still fine. Xiaohua pointed to Yuan, who was startled by Feng Yuxiang's exaggerated reaction. Updated from Light Novel Pub. Really? Feng Yuxiang wiped the tears that had gathered in the corner of her eyes after realizing that Yuan hadn't exploded into a bloody mess yet. Yes, I am perfectly fine, Yuan confirmed. Feng Yuxiang released a long and deep sigh afterward, feeling like she'd just lost a few hundred years of her lifespan from shock just now. Xiaohua merely shook her head, as she knew very well what Feng Yuxiang felt since she had experienced the same shocking experience firsthand. Chapter 228 Above Divine, Rank Physiques. Are you sure there are no side effects to eating monster cores, young master? Feng Yuxiang asked him a moment later, as she was still not convinced that one could consume monster cores like that. Look, I'll even eat another one to prove to you that nothing happens, Yuan said to her as he popped another monster core into his mouth and swallowed it. Heaven Refining Physique activated. 134,655,197 chi has been refined from the Assassin Leopard's monster core. Feng Yuxiang experienced another minor heart attack after seeing Yuan eat another monster core. Brother Yuan has been doing this way before he met you and nothing bad has happened to him yet, so we can assume that it's safe, Xiaohua said a moment later. After a moment of silence, Feng Yuxiang spoke in a dazed voice. Young master, if you don't mind, can you tell me what kind of physique you have that allows you to consume monster cores like that? I have never heard of such a heaven-defying physique even in the upper heavens. Yuan nodded and said, Heaven-refining physique. Heaven-refining physique? Feng Yuxiang raised her slender eyebrows in a manner as she has never heard of such a thing before. Then she closed her eyes to ponder. Follow current novels on Light Novel Pub. After many moments of silence, she suddenly snapped her eyes open and shouted in a voice of realization. That's right. I have heard of this physique before. Really? Both Yuan and Xiaohua looked at her with anticipation in their gazes. Feng Yuxiang nodded and said, If I remember correctly, I heard about the heaven-refining physique once before over 50,000 years ago, when I was still roaming the upper heavens. It's a legendary physique that has existed only once before, and the individual who had that physique was said to be an incredible cultivator, who dominated the heavens. Unfortunately, that's all I know. I see. So someone else had this physique before. Yuan mumbled. Well, that's only natural, said Feng Yuxiang, and she continued. In this world, there can be multiple people with the same physique. Of course, the rarer and stronger the physique, the fewer people will have them. However, there are some really special physiques in this world that can exist only in one person at a time as mandated by the heavens, as they are simply too powerful to exist in multiple people. In other words, unless that person dies, nobody else can be born with the physique. In your case, young master, the person who used to have the same physique was a legend from countless years ago in the ancient times, so we can assume that he's long passed away, as only real immortals at the peak of cultivation can exist for that long, or else he wouldn't be a mere legend. And she continued, Does your physique do anything else besides allow you to consume monster cores? Yuan shook his head and said, Not that I know of. Can physiques have multiple powers? Feng Yuxiang nodded and said, Of course. The more powerful the physique, the more likely it'll have a second, even a third effect. The most up-to-date novels are published on Light Novel Pub. What about the rank? Do you know the rank of your physique, young master? Yuan nodded and said, Celestial. Celestial? What rank is that? Feng Yuxiang raised her eyebrows in a truly puzzled manner, as this is her first time hearing of such a rank. Above the divine rank is the ancient rank, and above ancient rank is mythic rank, so I can only assume that the celestial rank is above the mythic rank, which is quite hard to believe if I am being honest. Feng Yuxiang mumbled in a low voice. After all, you won't see anyone above the divine rank in the lower heavens, much less the celestial rank that is likely above the ancient and mythic rank. It just doesn't sound plausible, unless the young master was born in the upper heavens. That's not possible. Yuan shook his head. Forget about the upper heavens. He wasn't even born in the lower heavens. The only logical reason for this is that players such as himself don't abide by the laws of this world. Hence why they're able to cultivate much quicker, and defy the laws in this world. After all, if one thinks about it, players are otherworlders who came from another world, Earth. It shouldn't be too far-fetched to think that they would have an advantage over the people of this world since they're players comparing themselves to NPCs. Anyway, I am going to consume the rest of these monster cores. Hopefully they'll help me reach Spirit Master. Yuan proceeded to toss the rest of the monster cores into his mouth, and Feng Yuxiang could only watch this unfathomable scene with a dazed look on her face. For more, visit Light Novel Pub. Heaven Refining Physique activated. 1,841,243,648 chi has been refined from the Praying Howler's monster core. 40,594,785 chi has been refined from the Bladed Jackal's monster core. 69,347,481 chi has been refined from the Greater Storm Wolf's monster core. 5,652,214,875 chi has been refined from the Lonely Giant Screamer's monster core. Even the 8th level Spirit Warrior monster core was swallowed without any problems. Just how powerful of a heaven-defying physique is this heaven-refining physique? Feng Yuxiang mumbled in a low voice, feeling a chill in her spine after watching Yuan's shocking performance. ID only managed to absorb a little over 9 billion qi from all of the monster cores. I still need 3 more billion qi experiences before I can break through to Spirit Master. Yuan thought to himself afterward. Where else can he obtain these 3 billion qi experiences? Cultivating normally would take too long, and the Treasury Hall already gave him all of their monster cores. Hopefully, the Dragon Peak will be able to help me obtain the last 3 billion qi and allow me to break through to Spirit Master. Yuan mumbled as he gazed outside the window. Sometime later, once they calmed down, Xiaohua and Feng Yuxiang returned inside Yuan's body. And since there was nothing else to do until the inner court disciple examination next week, Yuan decided to log off for the day to cultivate in the real world. Follow current novels on Light Novel Pub. Come. Chapter 229 Parents. After cultivating in the real world for a couple of hours, Yuan stopped his cultivation and waited for Yuro to enter his room. Suddenly he could hear footsteps approaching his room. However, these graceful and quiet steps did not belong to Yuro. A few moments later the door opened and Mixius' voice resounded. Good evening, young master. I will be attending you tonight, because the young lady has been summoned by the masters. Our parents? Do you know why? Yuan asked her. I do not, young master. I understand. Thank you. A few moments later, Meishio began removing Yuan's clothes and wiping him down with a wet towel. Young master, if you don't mind me asking, you'd participated in a musical competition right? I heard about it from the young lady. Meishio suddenly asked him. Yes, I did. What kind of instrument did you play? She then asked. Follow current novels on Light Novel Pub. An instrument called the Zither, Yuan casually said. Did you win? Knowing the young master, you most likely place first again. I did. See, congratulations, young master, Meishio said in a somewhat surprised voice. After wiping his body, Meishio began feeding Yuan his 3 bowls of soup. Could the young master be player Yuan, who's currently dominating the game and causing a commotion around the world with his mysterious identity? Although it's hard to believe, their stories line up. Meishio thought to herself. While she doesn't particularly care about matters outside of the Yu family, the countless talks about player Yuan have also caught her interest recently. Meanwhile, in a separate household a couple of miles away from Yuan's home, Yuro stood before 2 individuals, a handsome middle-aged man and a beautiful middle-aged woman. Yuro, do you know why we called you here today? The middle-aged man asked her. I do not, father. Yuro responded in a calm voice. This content is taken from Light Novel Pub. Indeed, these 2 individuals were the siblings' parents, Yuyong, the father, and Tang Li, the mother. After a moment of silence, Yuyong spoke. Do you know of the game? Yu Rao's eyes widened at Yuyong's unexpected question, as she never expected things that were not related to music would come out of their parents' mouth. I have. I even played it for a couple of days during my vacation, she responded after her initial surprise. Tang Li then said, well, the other families have been talking about it recently, or more specifically, they have been talking about an individual who goes by the name of Player Yuan. Do you know of this person? I do. He's all over the internet, after all. Yuro nodded in a somewhat dazed manner, silently wondering to herself why their parents were suddenly interested in Player Yuan, who was their own son. Yuyong then said, the children from the other families have recently participated in this musical competition related to the Zither within Cultivation Online, and they told their families that this Player Yuan was without a doubt a musical genius with strong beliefs that he belongs to a family with a music background. And he continued, I have heard of this Player Yuan before but never really paid attention to him, but if he's really a musical genius, I would like to meet him. Visit Light Novel Pub. For a better experience. Why do you want to meet him, father? He's just a gamer who's decent with the Zither, right? Even if he's a genius with the Zither, there's no guarantee that he could play the other instruments as well. Furthermore, nobody plays the zither anymore. Yuan asked him. It doesn't matter how many instruments he can play. Our company is always looking for talented people. And if this player Yuan is as talented as they say, I want him to play for my company. Yuan said. Yuan shook her head and said, I'm afraid that's impossible for now, father. Everybody has been looking for player Yuan's real identity since the game started weeks ago, but nobody has been able to learn anything to date. I know. I have been researching about him as well. However, I don't believe that he'll be able to hide his identity forever. Sooner or later, his identity will be revealed, and when that happens, I will be the first one to greet him. Yuan said with a serious look on his face. Anyways, the reason I called you here today is to let you know that we will begin doing our tours in cultivation online instead of the real world, as that seems to be the trend nowadays. What? How does that work? Yuan stared at them with a gawking look on her face. Simple. We will start doing concerts in the game to spread our company's reputation within the game. The other families have already been doing this and to great success. Therefore, we shall be doing the same as well. Why, you don't mean? Yuan swallowed nervously after hearing this, as she could feel an ominous feeling looming in the atmosphere. I've heard from others that even people who cannot see or move in the real world can operate like they're perfectly healthy inside the game. If that's the case, then we can have Tian play the game and start playing instruments again within the game. He has been useless for far too long, and it's about time he steps onto the stage again, albeit a virtual one. For more, visit Light Novel Pub. Yuan silently gritted her teeth when she heard this, yet she didn't know what she could say at this moment. What? What if Brother Tian doesn't want to do it? Yuan asked a moment later. Tang Li then spoke in a cold voice. He doesn't have a choice in this. If he doesn't want to do it, then we will simply disown him and kick him out of the house, as we have no use for someone who does nothing but eat up our money and resources. It's not cheap maintaining someone in his condition even for us, after all. Chapter 230 Tian's decision. That's unreasonable, mother. Where will Brother Tian go if you kick him out? He cannot do anything by himself either. You cannot do this to him. Yuan immediately said. How dare you raise your voice at me, Yuan? Tang Li shouted back, and then she continued. We have spent hundreds of millions of dollars in these last 10 years on that boy's medical bill hoping that he can be healed. However, it's very clear to us that his condition is permanent. If that's the case, why should we continue to waste our money on someone like him? There are things in life you must give up, even if that thing is family. But Brother Tian has brought fame and reputation to our family and company. How can you throw him away like trash after everything he's done for the family? Had even sacrificed his childhood, so that our family could prosper. Yuan did not care about getting scolded and continued to defend Tian, as she cannot imagine a life without him. It is true that his talents have brought our family and company to the peak of the musical world. That we won't deny. However, we've paid him back and more with the millions we've spent on him for the last 10 years. If he doesn't want to continue contributing to the family, then there's no reason for him to remain in this family. We've thought long and hard about this, and this is our decision. If you don't want that, then it'd be in your best interest to convince Tian to comply with our request and play for the family again. Yuan said to her with a stern expression on his face. I understand, Yuan said after a moment of silence. Sometime later, Yuan left her parents' living quarters and returned to her own place. On her way home, she pondered how she should relay this news to Tian and convince him to play for the family again. Once she had returned, Yuan went straight to Yuan's room. However, she didn't immediately enter his room, and stood outside in front of the doors for many minutes. What's wrong, Yuan? Yuan's voice resounded from inside the room. Yuan took a deep breath before entering the room, and she said in a solemn voice, I spoke with father and mother today. The source of this content is Light Novel Pub. I know. Meishio told me, Yuan said. What did you talk about this time? Did your grades lower again? Yuan spoke in a joking voice. However, Yu didn't smile, nor did she respond to his question. "What's the matter, Yu?" Yuan asked her, feeling something amiss from the quiet atmosphere. "Well, you might not like what I am about to tell you, but this is something I must tell you," Yu said, and she began telling him about what had occurred at her meeting with their parents as well as the conversation. Because the other families have been bringing their music into, mother and father decided to do the same, and they want you to start playing the instruments again. Yu said to him, leaving out the part about disowning him if he refuses for now. Yuan immediately became speechless after listening to Yu's words, and after a long moment of silence he spoke. "So? They want me to repeat what I did when I was young in Cultivation Online?" "Yes, they want you to start playing the game, but purely focusing on music." Updated from Light Novel Pub. After another moment of silence, Yuan said in a sighing voice, "If I hadn't experienced the beautiful world that is Cultivation Online, I would have probably agreed. However, I have many things to do inside the game, so I won't have time to do what they want me to. Even if I do have time, I refuse to play the instrument for them." Yu began sweating when she heard Yuan's decision, and she began trying to convince him. "Why don't you think about it again, brother? You'll be able to return to your previous spotlight, and people will finally stop looking down on you. I also want to hear you play music again." However, Yuan remained reluctant and said, "There's no need for me to think about it. I want to explore the cultivation world of my own free will. If you want to listen to my music, just let me know and I'll play for you, Yu." It was Yu's turn to remain silent this time, and after a long moment of silence, she spoke in almost a crying voice. "Brother, I didn't want to tell you this at first because I know it'll hurt you, but mother and father said that if you don't comply, they'll disown you and kick you out of the house." "Oh, is that so?" Even though Yuan's voice remained somewhat calm, he could feel a painful sensation in his heart for a few seconds after learning that he might be disowned. After all, anybody would feel betrayed if their parents said they'd disown them non-jokingly. Sometime later, Yuan said in a calm yet somewhat cold voice, "If they are going to disown me purely because I don't want to work as a puppet for them again, then they can disown me. I don't want to spend the rest of my life as a puppet. Instead, I want to live the rest of my life to the fullest, so I don't have any regrets when I inevitably pass." But where are you going to go, brother? Think about this for a second. You won't be able to survive by yourself. And don't make it sound like you're going to die anytime soon because you're not. Even Dr. Wang said that you're growing healthier. For more, visit Light Novel Pub. It'll be okay, Yu. I will figure something out, and this is a good opportunity to finally set you free from your responsibilities and live a normal life. No, I don't want that. I want to continue taking care of you forever. Yu quickly refused. You know you can't do that, Yu. After all, you also have your own life to live. Yuan sighed, wondering what he can say to convince his little sister to give up on him, so that she could also live her life to its fullest. Chapter 231. Planning to leave the family. Yu, how about we end this conversation here today? I would like to think about it some more, alone. Yuan suddenly suggested. After a moment of silence, Yu said, "Okay, I'll leave you alone for tonight. Please think about this carefully, brother. I don't want to be separated from you." After turning off the lights, Yu left Yuan's room and returned to her own room. However, just as she prepared to sleep, her phone began ringing. Yu looked at the caller. It was from her father, Yu. "Yes, father? Did you speak to him?" Yu asked her. "I did, father." What was his response? For more, visit Light Novel Pub. Brother Tian. He said that he needed some more time to think about it. Yu said. A cold snort immediately followed and Yu said, "What does he even need to think about? The answer should already be obvious. Did the illness start affecting his brain?" Yu, you tell him that he has 3 days to decide. If he doesn't decide by then, well, decide for him by disowning him. I understand, father. I'll tell brother Tian. Yu tossed her phone on the bed after Yu ended the call. Plop. Yuan's body suddenly collapsed onto the bed in an exhausted manner. How did it come to this? I just wanted to live a peaceful life with brother Tian, even if I had to take care of him forever. She sighed. Meanwhile, inside his own room, Yuan tossed his plan to cultivate for the night, and began pondering what he should do now that he's been thrown into this difficult situation so suddenly. Visit Light Novel Pub. Calm for a better experience. As much as he wanted to remain inside the family and stay with Yuan, he didn't want to continue playing the instruments just so his family, mostly his parents, could feed off his fame and hard work. Furthermore, if his family disowns him, he will finally have a good excuse to tell Yuan to stop taking care of him, so she could also live a normal life. The cultivation world. I want to explore more of it, every nook and cranny if possible. But that won't be possible if I spend most if not all of my time playing the instruments like I used to. But how am I supposed to live alone when my body is like this? Like Yuan had said, I cannot survive by myself. Even if I can somehow manage by myself, where can I go? Wait. I should have a bank account with a couple of thousands inside. Maybe I can use that money to move out, and then find some way to earn more money. But how can I earn money when I'm in this condition? If only I can earn money just by playing. Yuan proceeded to spend the entire night thinking about his plan, just in case his family really decided to disown him. The following morning, Yuan came to his room, and she asked him in a tired voice, almost like she didn't get any sleep. Brother, did you think about it? Father, he said you only have 3 days to decide, or he'll disown you. I don't need 3 days to decide, since I have already come to a decision. Yuan said, and he continued, I know you want me to stay here, but I really don't want to give up my freedom even in cultivation online as I had in the past. I know you don't want this, but I also want you to live your life without any large responsibilities like taking care of me every day, and it's not like we're not going to see each other ever again. But where are you going to go? Who will take care of you? How are you going to survive? Yuan asked him. Follow current novels on Light Novel Pub. Calm. You're probably going to laugh at me for saying this after what I just said, but I'll need your help for a few more things if I want to live by myself. Can you do that for me? If not, I'll just let fate decide my life, Yuan said in a sighing voice. After a moment of silence, Yuan sighed. What do you need me to do for you, brother? I'll hear you out at least. What's your plan? I should have an account with a few $1,000s inside, and I'll use that money to move to another place, which should last me a couple of months. I'll also use some of that money to hire someone who can take care of me in your place. This way, you won't have to worry about me as much anymore. However, I'll need someone you can trust to take care of me. I also plan on making money, but I'm not sure how I can do that at the moment. Perhaps there is a way I can earn real-life money by playing cultivation online. Yuan listened to Yuan's plans with a serious look on her face. I understand your plans. Yuan spoke after pondering for a moment, and she continued. I guess you can use that money to move out of the house and hire a maid or something. But who will fit that role? I don't think there is anyone that I trust enough to take care of you every day. As for making money through cultivation online, that is very possible, as you can sell items or gold in the game for real-life currency. In fact, it's already a huge market with tens of millions of dollars being traded every day. Really? I can do that. If that's the case, I can simply sell some things and earn money that way, Yuan said. But you'll need someone to do that for you since you obviously can't do it yourself, and that might give away your identity, so it's really risky unless the person doing it can be trusted. Yuan sighed. Follow current novels on Light Novel Pub. Com. Chapter 232 I Can Only Trust You. Well, can you think of someone? I can only think of one person when it comes to trust. Yuan said a moment later. Really? Who? Yuan asked in a truly puzzled voice. Meishio. Yuan quickly answered. Yuan turned silent. It's true that Meishio can be trusted, but Yuan pondered with a perplexed frown on her face. While she can trust Meishio to take care of Yuan in her stead, even keeping his secret as player Yuan, She was worried that they would develop some sort of relationship with each other from spending too much time together, and that her relationship with Yuan might grow further apart as a result. Oh right. She's your personal maid, nor can we really separate her from you just to help me, much less giving her such a burden that is me. That would be way too selfish of me. I guess we'll just have to find some random person to help me and hope for the best. If my identity as player Yuan is revealed, it is what it is. I highly doubt that'll make my life more miserable than currently, Yuan sighed. Yuro turned silent once again, and then she said a moment later, Brother, let me speak with Meishio to see if she wants to help you. Of course, I won't command her or anything like that, and it will be entirely up to her whether she helps or not. How does that sound? The source of this content is Light Novel Pub. Are you sure? You've been with Meishio for all your life, and she has been your servant for as long as well. I don't think I can really separate the two of you. Don't worry, brother. It's not like Meishio will stop helping me. Furthermore, I can say the same to you. As Meishio has been in our lives for almost the same time, and she's almost like a second sister to us at this point. I guess you can go ahead and ask her. However, don't force her, Yuro. Even if you are trying to help me, I don't want you to force Meishio because I won't accept her help if that's the case. Who do you think I am, brother? I am not unreasonable like some people in this family. I won't force her. I swear. Okay, if you say so. Are you going to play today? Yuro asked him after their daily routine. No, I'll take a break today. There's nothing to do until next week anyway. Okay. After cleaning up, Yuro went to eat her own breakfast and prepared for school. The source of this content is Light Novel Pub. On her way to school, Yuro asked Meishio while they sat in the car. Meishio, I have something important to ask you. Yuro stared at Meishio in the eyes with a serious look on her face. What is it, young lady? Yuro took a deep breath, and she began explaining to her the situation regarding Yuan. Well, my parents are thinking about making brother Tian play instruments inside as he used to when he was young, but my brother refused. The thing is, if he refuses, they will disown him and kick him out of the house. What? Meishio covered her mouth in shock, as she could almost not believe her ears. How could the masters? What does the young lady and young master plan on doing? Meishio couldn't help but ask, as this will definitely change the entire household as a whole. We don't really know yet, but brother Tian intends on leaving the family and living by himself. However, his condition doesn't exactly allow that. Therefore, he's thinking about hiring someone else to take care of him, as he doesn't want me to bear the burden anymore. That's very like the young master. Meishio nodded. The source of this content is Light Novel Pub. But the problem is that I don't know anyone I trust enough to take care of brother Tian. There are many bad people out there. Heartless people who will mistreat or take advantage of brother Tian's condition. And I fear that very much. Yuro spoke from the bottom of her heart. While it sounded like she was trying to get sympathy from Meishio so that she could pressure Meishio with guilt, that was not the case, as Yuro truly feared that someone might take advantage of Yuan. Indeed, this world is filled with nasty people. Unexpectedly, Meishio agreed. Anyways, I have been thinking about people who I trust enough to take care of brother Tian, and after thinking about it for very long, I could only think of a single person that I trust enough, and that's you, Meishio. And me? Meishio pointed at herself with a startled look on her face. But I am the young lattice. I know. Yuro quickly interrupted and she continued. I know that you're my personal maid and that you've been for almost my entire life, but I can only trust you to take care of brother Tian. Of course, I am only asking you. And if you refuse, I won't hold anything against you since I know very well from experience how difficult it could be at times to take care of brother Tian. Especially if you're doing it every day for years. And even brother himself said that it's all up to you whether you want to listen to our request or not. You don't need to give me an answer right away. Think about it. We'll continue this conversation when we come back home. Yuro then said. I understand, young lady. Meishio nodded, feeling many perplexed emotions in her heart. While Yuro went to school, Yuan focused on cultivation. Visit Light Novel Pub. Calm for the best novel reading experience now that even my own parents have given up hope on me. I can only rely on you, Ro, and myself to survive. I should have expected this outcome sooner or later. Yuan gritted his teeth in frustration, his heart burning with the desire and passion to crawl out of this hellhole. Cultivation is now my only hope to recover. Even if it's not a full recovery, I will be satisfied with a partial recovery. At this moment, unbeknownst to Yuan, the flames within his heart began pulsating, and the golden symbols engraved in his bones began to glow brightly. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.